On and off, on and off, on and off.
Okay, we are live now. Please let's settle down. Technical, I'm hearing an echo here. Okay, can you hear me? Can the online audience hear me? Okay, they can hear me. And there's an echo in the hall, technical. Okay. Can I proceed, technical? Okay, yes, I think they fixed the echo. So as I was saying, I think the online audience probably missed my welcome, but I have to welcome you again. You must hear this welcome because you know, we've planned this event not only for our physical audience, but also our online audience as well. So wherever you're logged in from, I was destined previously that you might be logged in from Antarctica, which is really a stretch, but if we have people logged in from there, you're welcome as well. Wherever you are on this earth and you're logged in, we are happy to have you here. So I say to our online audience as well, SPE Lagos welcomes you. If you're here physically, if you're here online, we assure you that you're going to have a beautifully enlightening experience. We have brought together powerful speakers and they're already in the house, powerful speakers who know their onions, who are seasoned professionals, and they are here to address a topic that has become germane for most people in the oil and gas industry. We are transitioning. What should I do? the skills I have today, are they still relevant? Would they be relevant in the next 4 to 5 years? So we are addressing a very, very important topic. Students, professionals, I'm sure everyone is interested in the topic. And just as we share memes, I hope that you do not keep this to yourself. You can still share the joining link with your friends, your colleagues, so that they can also participate and they can learn. Sharing is the most fundamental act of friendship, and I hope you'll be able to do that as well. So please prepare your questions. I hope you came here with something to ask. Don't come here and our panelists will finish dropping nuggets and you say, don't worry, I don't have any questions. Come here with your questions, ask your questions, and I'm sure they are ready to answer you. Before we give details of today's event, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. So technical team, can I see the next slide, please? Someone is saying volume off again, unfortunately. Technical, please address this. So for today, you just saw the agenda, and this is what we expect of you. If you're not speaking, kindly mute your microphones. I believe everyone is actually muted, but when it's time to ask questions, you might be unmuted to ask your questions. There are 2 ways you can actually ask your questions. You can use the chat box, post your questions in the chat box, or raise your hand and wait for your turn if you would like to ask a question. Do not unmute yourself so we don't have a very noisy event. Also, do not turn on your video as well. You're on for people physically present here, just for your safety, we're on the 6th floor of Temple Towers. You came in through the elevators. On your right is the fire escape. We do not have any planned drill today. I don't think the facility people have any drill, but if the alarm should go off, the fire escape is on your right. Please use that. The convenience is also by your right, clearly marked and used as appropriate to your gender. For COVID-19, we are not out of the woods yet, so I can see people are wearing their face masks. Don't hang it. If you want to wear it properly. Don't hang it, and limit contact with other people. You know, just ensure that you adhere to the social distancing rule. Be aware of your surrounding. Please avoid eating while you're talking to avoid getting choked. Do not make or receive calls inside the kitchen. Do not think because an accident hasn't happened to you that it can't happen. Carefulness costs you nothing. Carelessness may be costly. So these are just tips for you to bear in mind so that we are all safe here. So SPE is a non-profit organization whose mission is to collect, disseminate, and exchange technical knowledge on exploration, development, and production of oil and gas, as well as enhance the professional development of her members. The YP Forum, the yearly, because this is an annual event. This annual event is one of such platforms that we actualize this mission. And we hope you're all enthusiastic about today's event. But I can't say everything because I'm not the president. So to give us more details, I would like to invite the Young Professionals Chairman, the section chairperson, Mrs. Fayama Okoli. Please, a round of applause as she comes up to give us her introductory remarks.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I am so delighted to be here. Like she said, there's been a lot of planning behind the scenes to bring this topic to us this morning. I especially want to thank our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Joe Wakwe, for coming here today, giving us our time and efforts. I also welcome our speakers, our panelists. They have a lot to share with us today. At SPE Lagos, we are dedicated and committed to giving our members benefits. If you're a member of SPE, we want to ensure that you get the value for that membership. So we are focused on the technical growth of professionals. So a lot of technical knowledge sharing has been ongoing through the course of the year. We also cater to the professional growth of our young professionals, our mid-career professionals, and our senior professionals. No demographic is left behind. Now, beyond technical and professional growth, we also focus on our health and well-being. This is key for professionals. You cannot really grow if you are not healthy, if you're not fit. So we cater to, so we try to look at the wholesome well-being of professionals in the oil and gas industry. Now, taking this a little bit from here, we are now in the space of energy transition, and you will know very much as well as I do that this is the buzzword in the industry today. It is so serious that no committee, no group, no company, no organization is functioning without thinking of the impact energy transition will have on their existing business models. Any organization that hasn't gotten to that point is at the risk of being a dinosaur. So there's a lot going on in this space. It is not, therefore, out of place for us to be asking ourselves as individuals, where do I fit in this new space? What is the roadmap that I need to follow in order to ensure that I am not left behind? What do I do next with my existing skill set? How do I grow? How do I, these are the questions, right? And believe me, it's not only young professionals that are asking these questions. Mid-career professionals are bang in the middle of these questions. Senior professionals, as bizarre as it might sound, are also asking these questions. What do I do with the changes going on in the industry? If not for themselves, for the companies they lead, if not for the companies they lead, they are actually asking these questions for their children that they had originally planned to put in the pipeline of oil and gas. So this is a very topical discussion. And here we want to focus on the skill sets that are required. Personally, I want to learn a lot. We have the panel to do justice to it. I invite everyone to make this interactive, engaging, so that by the time we leave here with information that people that did not join do not have. So with that, I welcome everyone. If you are currently not following SPE Lagos on LinkedIn, you are missing a lot. So I will crave your indulgence, open up your phones, search for SPE-Lagos section 61 and click the follow button so you can be abreast of all our other events and activities, series of them that come up back to back to back. So welcome to everyone. Have a splendid day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fireman. Thank you for that beautiful opening remark. A round of applause again to her. A round of applause to her. I need the online audience. I need to see your hands. A round of applause to Mrs. Fireman as well. I need to see your comments to show that you're part of this. Okay. The next person who is going to give us his remarks is the young professional chairperson, Chukwemeka Kerry, and I think he's online. So Kerry, if you're, oh yes, he is. I can see him clearly. Hi, Chooks, how are you?
Hi, Chiamaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. So please
great,
give us
great.
your remarks.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And you're welcome to this YP Forum. I'm excited for this, and I know it's going to be a great session over there. I really wish, I could be there personally, in person with everyone, but at least we thank God for technology, and I'm able to join online. So first of all, I'd really like to appreciate the entire team that put this together, and SPE Lagos as well for all the support. We wouldn't have been able to put this session, this event together without your support and without your help. So I really thank and appreciate everyone. As usual, we as the SPYP committee, always try to organize events to, to provide the relevant technical or and networking opportunities for our young professionals. And I believe this is one of them. And I hope that everyone that attends either in person at the venue or online will appreciate this meeting, this workshop, this event, and of course, it will help in all your future, current and future decision making as a young professional in the industry. So I wouldn't want to waste too much time, and I would say that you guys have a great experience in this event. So thank you and have a great time. Back to you, Jamaka.
Thank you, Chooks. Thank you. Your impact is still being felt here, even though you're not physically present. And I say you're doing a good job. So thank you for your remarks. Very quickly, we are going to move to the next part of our event for today. And I just want to say that the world is constantly changing. It always will be. But recognizing the nature of these changes as it pertains to work, especially in our industry, is key to thriving. And that is why we are here to discuss what relevant skill do we need in this dynamic world, this ever-changing world. What relevant skills do we need to acquire to thrive as we transition to a new phase? So without further ado, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker in person of Mr. Joseph Mwakwe. But before he comes up, I would like to read his profile because he has a very robust profile with over 3 decades of experience in the oil and gas industry. I believe that he has a lot of things to unfold today here. So Mr. Joseph Mwakwe has over 30 years of oil and gas industry experience and holds a bachelor's BEng and MEng degree in petroleum engineering from FUTO and an MBA from Lincoln University, USA. He has a good mix of private and public sector experience, working assets across the globe and across technical disciplines of well engineering, reservoir engineering, and management. He also served as special advisor, policy and regulation to the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. And that's for over 5 years. That's 2017 to 2019, rather over 2 years. Joe has authored and co-authored several technical papers and contributed to the development of the new National Oil and Gas Fiscal Policies, Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program, and many other Nigerian oil and gas sector reform initiatives. He was the 2020 Council Chairman. SPE Nigeria is a fellow of the NSE, member of the Nigerian International Association of Energy Economists, and a current registered professional engineer. Whew, what a mouthful. So that's a splendid profile. That's a splendid profile. I believe this is even an inspiration to a lot of us here. So please join me to welcome our keynote speaker, Joseph Mwakwe, who is going to give us his keynote address. Please, a round of applause as it comes up.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and our virtual audience. Okay, I'll start by saying that when I was asked to do this, I wondered, I said, what would they want to hear? Because I'm used to talking to people my age, old people. Okay, so if you spend all your time trying to beat up old people, it's tough figuring out how to address a much younger audience and smarter people. I tell you this, your generation, you're not just smarter, I would say you're privileged, right? So a lot is happening. And for the most part, great things are happening in your time. We weren't this lucky. Don't kid yourself. It hasn't always been this good. So I have a 21-year-old daughter, and we go through this discussion all the time. And I say, I wish I was born at this time. And she will go, no, you can't say that. It's tough. Dad, school is hard. I say, well, It was harder during our time, right? So what I'm saying is, so today I'm going to talk about something that everybody talks about. I get the sense that we don't all quite understand what the transition is. For some people, it's scary. It just means, oh, we're going to lose jobs. For even businesses, it's scary because it means that the business models that we have been used to 60, 70, 80, 100 years, right? Suddenly somebody says it doesn't work anymore. That can be very scary. Change is not easy, right? But I believe that if you have knowledge and you have a plan, a strategy, change becomes easier. It doesn't make it easy, it just becomes easier. So today I will talk, and I want us to make it as simple. I would like to make it as interactive as possible. I'm going to assume we're all mates here, right, today. And I'm going to encourage us to speak up. You know, if there are things that bothers you about the industry that you and I belong to, please, let's talk about it. I imagine that I'm going to spend the next 20 years, if I stay that long, working in this industry. You have the next 50 years to work in the industry. So you need to understand what you're doing, right? For me, it's water under the bridge, right? But for you, it's very, very important. It's essential. It's about, I spoke at an event and a young Ghanaian said, should I go and study something else? Is it that time when I need to move on and maybe go and read robotics or something? And I said, go and read your robotics, you can still bring it to the industry. So there's a whole lot of issues that we need to understand. So I will just rush through. It's only 14 slides and that's deliberate so that we can talk, right? I don't want to be that priest. I'm not a pastor. So I'm just going to say a few words and then let's discuss. Let's make it as interactive as possible. Okay, next please. So what I will do is talk about energy transition. How does it impact our industry and the people that work in it? What skills will we be needing? So let's agree that no matter what you and I think or believe, this train has moved, right? So, and it will have implications for us. It will have implications for the companies we work for. It will have implications for the country we come from, because indeed, we are a petro nation. You know what a petro nation is, right? A nation whose well-being is tied to the price of oil and gas, right? So this train has moved. It's not just going to impact John Wakwe professionally. It is going to impact the country I live in and how it manages its affairs. So it has huge implications for me. However, the good news is there are still a lot of people thinking somewhere who are trying to figure out how to navigate through this seeming turbulence, right? So I will speak to that. And then, of course, what can we do to help ourselves? What really can we do? Next, please. When in having this discussion, I always tell people, I said, start from the basics. The basics is that your quality of life, my quality of life, level of economic or industrial development is actually a function of energy use, right? So I did a quick one here. I just said, okay, let's take global GDP with time and track it. If you zero down at the inflation point, you will see a relationship between what you're doing in the energy space and your level of GDP growth. That I will do, and I was trying to break that up to show exactly what that is. But here it's just good enough to say that the higher your consumption of energy, the higher your level of development. And the inverse will be the case as well, right? The lower energy you consume, the least developed or industrialized you're going to be. On the next slide, you see, but here, just take this away. We need to consume energy to grow our economy. So whether it's a chicken and egg thing and it's something policy people debate, that relationship is very tricky. But let's go to the next slide. On the next slide, it breaks up this relationship by countries. Countries that have, so what this shows is energy use. And then, of course, your HDI. You know what the HDI is? Human Development Index. Now, in the previous slide, I used a GDP. Everybody that knows anything in economics thinks GDP is a crappy measure. So some 4 or 5 years ago, some smart people put together what they call the HDI. HDI measures not just, so because the argument has been whether economic well-being, right, is just the right thing to use or a human development measure, something that looks at your totality of your well-being rather than just your, you might have money, for instance, and have poor health, right? So that's the whole concept of the HDI. So if you look at HDI, you know where Nigeria will fall? It's somewhere here. It's very low HDI and very low energy consumption. It's when I plotted it, just sticks somewhere. But you know, just think about this. So what this says is that it really is not a function of your population. You know, when people talk about Nigeria, they think, oh, we are in this shit because our population is huge. No, it's not. Population should actually be an advantage. The size of the bubbles, right, is an indication of population. So you can see a country like that, China, huge, massive bubble, but it has moved up. 40 years, it was somewhere here, 40 years ago, right? It has moved and dragged its people out of poverty. We just haven't quite done it. We're here. Now, what does this say? So we need to consume more energy, really. But that's not, it's not a single variable equation, right? So, but it is important that if you don't consume or you don't find a way to consume more energy, you're not gonna have growth because it is energy that fuels growth. Okay, so let's get that. This relationship is very vital. And whether it is the energy consumption that leads to economic growth or economic growth that leads to energy consumption, it really doesn't matter. But that relationship is very strong. Okay, so next slide, please. So when I say, okay, so what has been the mix? Because somebody talked a bit about energy mix a while ago. And remember, energy mix is driven by a lot of factors. And I'm not going to go into this, but the important thing is, for the most part, the mix is not as important as what you consume, right? So if, and I use Nigeria as an instance. So somebody says, oh, we produce oil, so we should consume more of oil, right? But until Obasanjo's government 20 years ago, we were consuming more of hydro power than hydrocarbon, right? We were doing more of electricity from hydro. So if you look at the energy mix of Nigeria, it has actually evolved in the last couple of years. It's now tending more to gas, right? Today, 80% of our generation is gas-fired. That wasn't the case 30 years ago. That wasn't the case, in fact, pre-99. Pre-99, we were more hydro-driven than petroleum, right? So somebody now say, oh, but we have gas, so why don't we? So today, the argument will be, okay. Okay, so even where we are is not good. So let me not glamorize it. There's no way to paint a better picture of it, right? Today, our per capita consumption for electricity, which is a key measure, it's less than 150 kilowatt hour per capita per year. What does that, how do you relate with that? Somebody will say, what does that mean? Sub-Saharan Africa, it just means that the average person in, say, Tunisia, if you take that belt, they get about 600 to 700 kilowatt hour per person per year of electricity. We get about 150. Okay? So it's important we remember those numbers, because it's important when you make, I was in the policy space for 3 years, and those numbers meant more than numbers to me, because you can't have development without looking at those numbers. The sub-Saharan African average is about 600 kilowatt hour per capita per year. That number is equivalent to 1 month of OECD consumption per capita. So if you're in the developed Europe, right, what we consume, what sub-Saharan Africa consumes in a year, electricity-wise, is what they consume in a month. Does that make sense? So can you be as productive? It's just not going to happen. So we need to do something, but let's go back to the mix. The mix says, okay, for the period. So I put some numbers here just so that we can relate to it. Notice this, coal is dropping year on year. In the last in absolute terms, there's no growth in consumption of coal over time, and I will show that. But it's not dropping fast enough, if you ask me, for something that the world moved away from how many years ago. Then you talk about oil. Oil saw a negative growth in the last 10 years. But that has more to do with switching to gas, because when you see oil here, it's liquids that we're talking about. It's not just hydrocarbon. Gas is not there. So you look at gas, that's where you saw the biggest growth, at least of this, 2.5% per annum for the 10 years. Nuclear, some growth, but there's so much politics around it, right? That most countries, except with this Russia and Ukraine thing, a few countries have started looking at nuclear again. It's coming up, it's bubbling up again. But after like Germany and a few other countries, they've started to look at nuclear power. In fact, if you look at the last 15 years, the trend is that they were shutting down nuclear power plants. So it looks like there will be a reversal in policy. Then the renewables show the biggest jump, 14%. That's solar and wind primarily. So in terms of percentage change, they are seeing a huge jump. But remember, it's a small, if you look at the base effect, right? So if you have 50% of a small number and 1% of a big number, it doesn't change the fact that that's a small, very small number. So next slide, please. So this is just to give you a sense of where the world is today. What are we consuming? What energy? What is our mix? This is it. It shows that oil and gas put together contributes about 60–70% of our total energy consumption. And that's the one that they want to take away, right? I'm just kidding, right? But that's what the transition is trying to say. The transition is saying that, okay, you see, the transition, coal is a problem. Coal is dirtier than, if you look at the CO2 emissions, right? Coal is worse than these two. But we still have it, right? But we focus, we say, no, we don't want this. We will, I think in the next slide, it will become apparent why this is. And my argument to you today is that the transition, like I said, is a train, it has moved, but it's a slow train. It will end in your lifetime. Okay, so let's get a few facts straight. That transition is not a light switch, it's not an event. It's gonna happen very slowly. Indeed, the transition from coal is still happening, right? Okay, great. That's the picture. So this is the history of transition. So when people talk about, let nobody bullshit you. Transition it has been happening. It will continue to happen because it's driven by things so today, what we call the energy transition is something that is policy driven, and I will explain. Because suddenly we woke up and we say, oh, our lives in danger, environment. So we are only accelerating a process that would have happened on its own. If we left it, if there was no consideration for the environment, oil and gas will at some point be transitioned out of purely by the forces of the market. Does that make sense? And I will show that. So we are only accelerating the transition because there are extraneous considerations, which is our health, right? But here is the story of transition. So the world was using wood all the way up until about 1880, right? When they commercialized coal, right? That's the British Industrial Revolution that you hear of, right? It started at about that time. So coal went up, and that's coal, right? Then suddenly we found our beautiful crude oil, right? And you can see it has grown. But what has happened is at about 1950, the world found oil. Oil became, remember, the market will respond to that fuel. So oil was there, coal was there. There was more efficiency in oil, and oil was more cost efficient than coal. So the movement from coal to oil was determined by market forces. It wasn't determined by regulatory policy, right? Unlike what we see today. So that's what makes this period a bit unnerving for people. This transition, the transition from wood to coal was driven by efficiencies as well. Energy density. The transition from coal to oil was driven by the market. But the point I want to leave you with is that in spite of this transition, see where coal is, we are still on it. We still have people, we still have industries, coal industry. We still have a massive coal industry. So if somebody tells you that in your lifetime, in our lifetime, that we will be done with the transition from fossil fuel to renewable, that's not happening. There's nothing to support that. Does that mean it's not happening? I'm saying that the transition will happen, but it's going to take time. But while we're at it, there are things we can do to make ourselves to drive the process, and rather than have the process drive us. Okay? Okay, next, please. So the message here is coal is still a business till tomorrow. Oil will remain a major, but the percentage will come down. Its contribution to the mix will continue to drop, especially with the presence of natural gas. It's not going to be nuclear. It's not going to be renewables, because in terms of percentage contribution to the mix, those numbers are still very, very low. It's going to take a while before we can commercialize wind and solar to the level where they can displace a significant portion of that mix. So today, the only fuel that has that capacity is actually gas. Okay. So what are the key drivers? So I've broken this down so that at least we can understand. Like I said, the market, the key transition drivers we've seen traditionally will be technology, the economics, and of course, policy. These are the key drivers for any transition we've seen in the past. And it's not just in our industry, everywhere, right? However, the environment has injected itself into this. But of course, its effect will be through policy. And that's why you see COP21, COP this, because the world is trying to say, okay, we have a problem. We need to get everybody in a room and agree what policy steps we'll take to change, because people at times wonder, like, how is this all working? It's very simple. The only way we can change anything is, as far as it comes, is through policy, right? And that policy is something we all have to agree. So every country wakes up, you will hear one country in Europe, oh, we're going to ban IC vehicles, right? That's policy response. It's not market. If you leave the market, we'll still be buying internal combustion engines, right? So when we say we are subsidizing solar panels, right? That's a policy response to help wake that dead. You get the way it works. So every country is taking one step or the other because we recognize we have a common problem. However, all of this agenda, the COP business, is to get a universal consensus around it. Because if you leave every country to make their policy, it will be so confusing and haphazard that we may actually have more confusion. And people forget, and I think I was talking to somebody and I said, after COVID in 2020, it became obvious that there was confusion in the transition trade. When the economies all started coming back, guess what? We had a gross shortage of oil and gas production capacity. We are still suffering it. People do not see that if you look at the production pre-COVID, the world was doing 98, 99 million barrels of liquid a day. When COVID finished in September 2021, when we started coming out, up to now, we have not been able to get to 90 in spite of oil price going up. It tells you there's a capacity problem, right? What happened? So clearly, the underinvestment that has happened in the last couple of years is gradually creeping up. And that's why most analysts will tell you that it's very unlikely that oil price will drop below 100 this year. It's looking look at OPEC. OPEC said, bring more to the market. Nigeria can't even bring more. Last few days ago, they took our quota to 1.77, right? We can't do it. We don't have what it takes to do 1.77. Now, and it's not just Nigeria. It's not just here. The point I'm making is this is showing now that our own is not deliberate, but in some places, in some instances, you can say it's deliberate because, again, if the investments were made, we will have capacity to do 2 million barrels a day, right? So the cumulative effect of lack of investment over time, not necessarily driven by transition, in fact, driven by our own confusion, is what we are paying for today. So it's always something that for countries that do not have our type of problem, transition has become their own. So when the investment houses start saying, oh, some banks say, oh, we can't fund fossil fuel projects, they're laying the ground for a $200 oil. It will happen if we don't coordinate transition efforts. Okay, it will happen. I have no doubt. How do you produce? The world takes, on the average, if you plot the last 6 years or 10 years, liquid volume, the world needs about 100 million barrels every day, And you know, that's what they call natural decline, right? How many new projects are coming on globally? Minimal, except for Guyana, that way ExxonMobil is making now. There are no major things happening, right? So what's our natural decline for these fields? Anywhere between 10 to 20%. So year on year, you are losing that much capacity, right? So if you don't do work to at least restore it, you cannot keep. And remember, global population growth is what? There's a slide I should have put here that shows. So when we talk about this, don't ever think that the demand is static. It's not. The demand was forecasted to grow to 105 million barrels this year. That was the initial pre-2020 forecast, right? So there will always be a growth in that demand. And once you have a shortfall, what happens to price? So I'm just giving, so that's how you end up in this. People want hello. So what do people want? People want an energy source that is secure. People want guarantees that when I drive out in the morning and I need to fuel my car, I drive into the filling station, there will be petrol, I'll put it in the car and I go where I'm going to, right? That's security. You see, people think energy security is one complicated thing. No, no, no. That's in the simplest form. Energy security means two things for an average Nigerian: that he can put the switch on the wall and there'll be light. Once you do them and there's no light, you don't have security. There's no security. That you can drive into a petrol station and you get fuel. You don't have to queue. That's security. That's what it is. So people want energy security. If you have gas, if you use LPG at home, you want to a situation where you don't have to be planning on how to fill your bottle, right? It's not worth it to be planning for it. It should be something you just go drop it and pick up another bottle, right? That's security. So energy security is a major consideration. Environmental sustainability is the next. If you look at the numbers, anybody that tells you that there's no global warming, that person is lying. There is issues around warming. I mean, we've seen it, floods all over. I mean, the evidence, forget about the measurements, the evidence, the real evidence. Areas that were never flooded in the last 100 years have started being flooded. You saw the Washington, D.C. flood last year. So we know that there's something going on that I don't concern myself with what caused it, though. But we know that there's a problem. Okay, we are seeing all sorts of melting. The Antarctica, the ice, this is all melting. We know things are happening. So when people argue whether there's, I said, let me not get into the science. Let's stick with observations. What do we see? We know that there is a significant challenge in our weather pattern. Things are not the way they used to be. So whether it's hydrocarbon or fossil fuel burning that's causing it, it's not my problem. The problem is whatever we are doing is not working. It's not sustainable in the long run. So we need to do something different. And of course, I spent some time talking about the relationship between what energy you consume, how you consume it, and your level of economic development. So that is what they call the energy triangle. Whatever happens inside this loop is what feeds into it, right? The reason I raise this is so that we all understand when we say transition, okay. If the transition fuel does not guarantee access, whatever that transition is, right? If it does not meet these three criteria, it will not be sustainable in the long run. It won't work. So, and that's why most analysts will tell you that indeed, oil and gas will be here for a long time. Even much longer than coal has been around. And the reason they say that is that this industry is actually smarter than, I'm sorry to say that, the people who ran coal, right? This industry is an innovative industry. So if coal could not clean up, I can guarantee you that this industry will find ways and means to decarbonize and still produce and use hydrocarbon. And it's because people like you are here. We've shown the capacity that we are a highly innovative industry. So when people say the oil age is over, yeah, the stone age is over. We still have stones, right? So if you understand it, then you will understand that we will not walk away. And that's why when companies started changing and started saying, it's almost like somebody said, why do you apologize for helping the world? We have nothing to apologize for. Does that make sense? The industry has solved from that 1950 when it came on, it solved the world's energy problems. It drove, if you see the GDP growth, you saw that thing moving up like that. We did it. This industry did it. So we have no apologies to give to people that all we need to now say is that, okay, well, you say it's dirty. Okay, we'll clean it up. That's what we need to do as an industry. That's my view. Do we have the capacity to do that? Yes. We have people, we are so multi-skilled that if there's any technology out there in whatever sphere, we will find it and apply it to clean up. It's carbon they want out, we will take it out. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we are here for the long run. We're gonna be here because I know that we'll find answers to when they couldn't do clean coal, we're gonna do clean carbon-free hydrocarbon. If there's any such thing, we will do it. That's my belief. And I know that it's not far. It's not something, I'm so convinced that, and there are steps. I mean, we've heard of carbon capture sequestration. There are things, people are working. People are working to make sure that if it is that carbon and that hydrocarbon that's a problem, we'll address the issue. And we provide solutions. I don't know about you, but when I joined the industry, we could not drill wells in water depth deeper than 1,000 meters. It wasn't heard of. Do you understand what I mean? It just wasn't heard of. Guess what? We drill wells in water depths deeper than 10,000 meters today. Right? Does that sound like, and that's a short time. I'm trying to explain to you because I was, again, telling my little girl that when I came into the industry, there was only one computer in the department. My guy is there. We were naked. And it's on the hallway. You know, you go and write, Joe will use it as Susan, you put it there and you go away. And it's one box. So much of we used to track wellhead pressure, GOR. We had big tables like this. You go and use your pencil. I'm honest. That is not a long time ago. QIT engineering, we had one computer, the entire place. It's not even a laptop, it's a big box. So you book time and put it there so that nobody goes to sit down there. That's not a long time ago. Can you imagine where we are now? I mean, there are so many things. We couldn't, if you think of the technological innovations that the industry has brought to bear to our business in the last 20 years, you'll be amazed. So if anybody tells me that we can't find a solution to how to take away carbon and keep it away from the environment, I don't agree. I think we have the people to do it. Next, please. So, okay. So what's the impact? So what will all this mean? Okay, Joe says this is not, oil is not going away, so we'll just go back and see. To capture carbon and keep it away from the environment will do something to us. Something not too pretty. It would increase our cost of doing business. Okay, so how do we respond to it? That's just simple, right? So we say, okay, there are basic things that the energy transition will have a technological implication for us. Of course, it will demand more technology. We need to find ways and means of taking care of this issue. Economic. It will have economic implications for the industry, for you as a person. And I will explain what that means. It will have environmental consequences as well. And of course, there will be a regulatory response to all of this. Now, let me go back. So when we say we will continue, so we have two options. We can give up and say, oh, oil was bad idea. Let's go away from it. So we'll leave the oil in the ground, right? and we go to another fuel, we will need to assume that that fuel will be cheaper than the hydrocarbon that we have today, right? So if that's our response, if we say, oh, it was really bad, so we shouldn't have even done it, we will walk away from oil and gas. All the reserves that we have today, like 7 billion barrels. So it means that we will find another fuel that is cheaper. If it's not cheaper, then we're not going to leave the oil in the ground. Does that make sense? So we have to find something cheaper. So what is that? Solar would have been cheaper. I can tell you that. But solar, wind have a major challenge. They are intermittent. They don't work 24 hours, right? So when we need light at night, there's no solar. So we need to find another source, right? To guarantee that that our factories are churning out products 24 hours. Otherwise, that graph of economic growth, you know what will happen to it? That's not what you want. And when that happens, you do what? You throw more people into poverty globally. So these discussions are not simple. It's about people's lives, not just people in the industry. It's about the well-being of the entire world. What energy can we use? So that tells me that we will not walk away because the implications are just too there for the world. So we will find a way to keep producing oil because on a unit basis, and I missed out that slide. There's a slide I have that shows the unit cost, what we call levelized unit cost for each energy source. Oil is very competitive. It just happens to be one of the cheapest, the oil and gas together, right? So solar will be cheaper but then it has this wahala that it cannot continue. It's not, probably you get 3-6 hours of intense sunlight every day. If you're here, if you're in Norway, you're not going to get that. So you have to see the challenges. So the issue is, so if you consider cost, I would say the industry won't walk away from the trillions of barrels of oil that's in the ground. They won't. Just like we didn't walk away from coal in the world, we did in Nigeria. You know, people forget. I said this somewhere. I said, we left 2.6 billion tons of coal in the ground in Nigeria. It's still there. We walked away. America didn't. Germany didn't. China didn't, certainly. The bulk of the world refused to walk away. That's why we still, up until 2 years ago, China was still building coal plants. South Africa commissioned a coal plant 2 years ago. Power plant. So again, it's up to policy people. I think that we need to get our policy right. So economics will drive that. Now, what does that, like I said, so our response, if we decide, will be that, oh, we stick it out, but we'll decarbonize, which is what I hope will happen, right? But decarbonization comes at a cost. So we will need to be more efficient to counter that adverse cost effect, right? So that means, and that's where I come to you, that means you will need to produce that oil much cheaper than you currently do. That's the only way it will make sense. The cost advantage that petroleum enjoys today cannot be sustained if you cannot produce it cheaper, because you now need to decarbonize it. So when you add that, you still need to be competitive. Does that make sense? Okay. So the other thing that I think will be our response is that we're going to say maybe we can get a lot more efficient. That way we don't need 100 million barrels of oil every day. Are there energy saving technologies and things that we can come up with? Because indeed, energy efficiency will become a major consideration. How can we use energy better? How can we be smarter in our use? The other thing is that Our investment funds have all, as we speak, they're all gone away. So we will lose access to the markets in terms of capital. And this is a major issue. If you see when the VP was out saying we needed a, what word did they use? A human transition or something. That's what they are talking about. Because overall, the shareholders, my time, yes, I'll soon be there. So overall, the feedback from the market, the capital market, is that we don't want to mess with this product anymore, right? We're not putting money into it. If that happens, then it becomes difficult. If you don't have money to develop the assets, you can't do anything. So that's a major issue to consider. And then, of course, we'll have talent migration. When people like you get fed up with all these stories, you're smart enough to switch careers. Okay, and I hope you don't. But but that's real. That is real. And there are other things that can drive it. Remember, I said decarbonization is expensive. When we decarbonize, if we choose that path, it may mean that the industry, the margins in the industry will thin out. The industry will become less profitable than it is today. What would that mean? It means that the industry cannot afford to continue to pay competitive wages, right? Hello? If that happens, what would that mean? People will start carrying their bags and heading to some other place where it's happening. So these are real things that could happen. Next, please. My time is almost up. But I will take the liberty to make this as clear as possible. So I'm not going to waste time here. The YP, what your role is, we have to change our mindset. Let's not. So we have to first think energy instead of petroleum. So in your head, right? You have to first start seeing yourself as somebody in the energy business, not necessarily oil and gas. So the day of I'm an oil and gas engineer, I'm a petroleum engineer, maybe we need to change that. I'd like to be an energy engineer, right? So let's start thinking energy. Let's start thinking green. That's all I can say. So those two. When we internalize that, the resultant effect will be more salutary. It will be easier for you to transition. Because you now see your business, whether it's reservoir engineering, as part of a bigger picture, not as part of this petroleum thing. It's much bigger, right? So that's kind of what I'm proposing. So we'll have new. So again, there are issues around man-machine efficiencies. Essentially, that interface is about efficiency. If that interface is not properly managed, then there will be a lot of inefficiencies in the system. Next slide, please. Transformation lever. This is detailed. I'll leave it for you. You can go look at it. What happens at the workplace? What happens with the workforce, which is you, and then of course with the work itself. There's a lot here, but you will see them digitization and all the things that needs to happen to bring the efficiency and cost reduction that is necessary for the industry to continue. If we don't, and we layer on the cost of decarbonization and all that on our current cost, we will not be competitive and the market will respond. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Next, please. So what skills do we need? We still need the core technical skills, engineering, geoscience, all the regular. However, we need people who have multidisciplinary skills. We need people who are not just geoscientists, who understand a bit more about the energy landscape, because you're now, like I said, change your mindset. So if you're a reservoir engineer, what does that mean? You need to be thinking of the total system. So we need people who think in systems, not in silos, okay? We need people who have digital analytical skills. So all of the stuff that we talk about, machine learning and artificial intelligence, we need those because they bring efficiency to the business. They've proven over and over that can drive the kind of cost saving that you need to remain competitive. We need people with leadership skills and not titles here. When I say leadership, I'm not talking of title. I'm talking of real leadership. Whether you're entry level, you should be a leader. at that point, right? After all, even entry-level people get leader. Abi? From one people no get leader, they get leader. So be the leader in that place. You need to be the leader wherever you find yourself. The YP get leader, be. So be the leader. All of you go out there and be leaders in your areas. I'm sharing this space with somebody. Okay. And then we need people who can communicate. I think the industry hasn't done very well with communicating what we do to the bigger. So, and that's why a kid asked me a question that, I don't know what we're discussing. And he said, why are you guys, yeah, I remember now. We are thinking of under the transition, what kind of regulatory environment, this issue of whether it's energy regulation. So should we be looked at as part of a big, and this young kid like, why are you people like this? Why don't you just stay where you are? You're spoiling everything. They don't come and mess up this new. So it looks like we are staying as an industry. We are not communicating well. We're not telling the world the good things we've done. We're not showing that picture that shows GDP growth and oil consumption going up. We were the ones driving that stuff, right? So we're going to need new ways of communicating. We're going to need people to come and say, hey, this industry has indeed been a blessing to the world. Because if we weren't doing what we're doing, you won't see this level of development, right? We should be able to sell that message. So communication is key. So when they say we are dating, we say, well, you know, out of that date came all the development you see. We need to be able to communicate that better. We shouldn't be shy. We're right now, it looks like when they raise it, the environmentalists, we run away. We say, no, the industry has not been a bad boy. The industry has helped the world grow. So we need to push that message. And of course, we need people who have innovation in their toolkits. We must find faster and better ways of doing business. There's no other way to remain competitive. Remember, the marketplace will punish you if you're not. So if we take on the business that we want to continue in this business, we want to continue to produce oil, and we're not innovative, then we will not be cost competitive. And if we're not, we'll be dead before you wake up. The market will punish you. There's just no way around it. Because governments all over the world will continue to subsidize the renewables. So you already have an unfair disadvantage, right? Because subsidy money is going into all of those because it's very appealing to them to do. So you must be cost competitive, that even with all the subsidies, that adoption rate will not be as fast, because that's key. Otherwise, we're going to leave all that resource behind. Next, please. Okay. So we're talking about, there might be structural unemployment that will come with this. And you know what that means? It means that if we have 20 drilling engineers today, we might not need all of them because we might be drilling differently, right? So there will be a different way of doing business. It will mean certain skill sets might not be in very hot demand. People who currently have them might have to migrate to other things, right? And for them to do that, they need skills. So you need to reskill. It's very important. There'll be a bunch of new skill areas that will come up. I was telling somebody, I said, today, some of us don't think there's anything in carbon capture and storage. Well, there'll be a job, a new set of skills required for that. So I see new jobs popping up that if you go to any company, you will see somebody whose business is to look at carbon, count carbon. Okay? You call him a mission engineer, that's your problem. Whatever, there will be a new job somewhere. Somebody who accounts for every carbon produced and where it's gone, what has happened to it. So new jobs will spring up, and there are so many like that. I can see. So you need to position to take advantage of that. I'm talking to YPs now. There'll be, like I said, structural realignment of jobs and industry driven by policy. Some of this again will be by policy. Okay. And this is where it gets very interesting. So the government might decide that, oh, just like we say, when you think about what the European countries has done today, there are a lot of realignment in the way things are done. So we are all moving away. If you go to London, for instance, all those taxis are now electric. All those black taxis that you know, they're all electric now. Very, very sleek, very nice, right? So what has that done to the people that manufacture the IC engines? They're out of job, right? So there are, but then if they have the skills, they'll be able to start doing some other things. So my point is, don't sit still. Okay, don't be comfortable where you are. There's no comfort zone here. Get out there and do what you need to do to take advantage of the changes. There will be a skill transferability. Position yourself such that if you don't like this one, you can do the other one. Don't box yourself into a corner, right? Next slide, please. My time is up. So I'm going to talk, let's not waste time here. Just know that the bulk of it, if the company doesn't train you, I don't want to hear you say you can't train yourself, right? The resources today, like I said, is a totally different world. You know, you can stay in your house and study practically anything in the world for free. The only cost is probably data, right? It wasn't always this good. So please take advantage of that. Your phone is not just for TikTok, right? That your phone is not just for TikTok. It's for, use it for serious stuff. There's a lot of materials out there. There's no training you want, you can't get free. So please use it. Again, let's not, yeah. Next, please. So in conclusion, transition is an ongoing process. It just happens that environmental considerations are accelerating this current one, right? That's my point. We've always had transitions. This one maybe would have been delayed a few years, but our focus on the environment has brought it closer. That's one. The other thing that has not worked for us is COVID-19. That too took a hit on the industry. So workplace transformation is important because the industry has to be low cost, a lot more efficient, and greener. So we need to be part of that process. You need to actually, the YP should drive part of that process. And then of course, the workforce of the future will be radically different in character, quantity, and quality. We're going to need less people. We're going to need more high technology. We're going to need more efficiency. And we're going to need very high skilled people. So you need to, those are all in your hands, right? You can upgrade your skills and, you know, functional silos. I need to say this. We all, so I used to have a friend. He said he was in his 23-year career, he was in reservoir engineering all through. And so one day we were talking and I said, how could you? I said, I'll be bored to hell. He said, no, that he needed to specialize. And I'm like, okay, so what else do you know? And he was struggling with that. I think people should need to understand that those silos were not created by God. They weren't. You are Ari, right? No, God didn't create that thing. Get out there and do something else. Acquire as much knowledge across board as possible. I will be the first to tell you, I'm restless. I started as a well engineer, old operations engineer, right? I went from there to IT, spent 5 years plus, went to RE, spent another 7 years. So I kept moving around. It makes me, I feel better that way. I can't stay in one place. I'm not saying everybody should, but if you decide to stay in one place, please let your brain not stay in that same place. Open it up. train. I'm serious. This is very important. You know, a couple of years after, I went to work in government and I was dealing with issues of law and economics. Nothing engineering, no. I wasn't building simulation models anymore, right? And I realized how narrow we tended to pitch ourselves when we're in the IOC environment, right? We tended to think that everything was artificial lift, gas lift, so what? Open your mind. There's a whole lot. There are skills out there that you need that will position you for the work that you eventually end up doing. So I'll stop here and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Is that round of applause? It's too small. It is too small. This was an expository presentation. You can tell how passionate he was. He started from, I pulled off my shirts, rolled up my sleeve. I was like, this is too much. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how much. In fact, maybe he'll pull off, put his glasses down, his wristwatch, his shoes, because he was really, really dishing a lot of knowledge. And please, a resounding round of applause again for him. I was writing down a lot of things, but I won't go through what he has said again. It's just something he said that I liked. The train has actually moved on and it will continue that way for a long time. But rather than have the process drive us, we need to figure out how to drive the process. And that's what he explained just recently, the kind of skills you need to acquire to thrive during this energy transition. So I hope you all picked up a lot of things. You noted down questions you have to ask and even things you go back home, research on, and things you need to improve on with respect to your skills as well. So sir, I want to really, really appreciate you because I was really listening. It was really a good one for me. Thank you. I'm sure everybody shares the same sentiments. So thank you very much for that, sir. Thank you. Very quickly, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. But before we do that, I have a question for the audience. How many people remembers, or who here remembers the 2021 theme for the YP Forum? Because this comes with something. Somebody's going to get something now. If you remember, let us know. Who remembers? I'm seeing blank stares. Do you remember? And I'll have the president to be the one to say, yes, this is correct. And the section chairwoman will be the one to say, yes, this is correct or not. So if you remember, let me know. I would count 1 to 30. Yes, and the online audience, I have something to ask you as well. Going. I see someone's hand at the back. Okay. Oh, he was just trying to joke. Okay, does anybody remember? Yes, fantastic. So let me give you this mic. Camera, can you zoom in here?
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't remember it exactly, but I know it was something around creating opportunities for the industry, creating your own opportunities for the industry.
Very, very close, but not yet, dear. I don't want to give it to the online audience because I have a question for you as well. Okay, so what's your name, please? Adeyemi. Okay, I think I'll give it to, okay. No, I think I'll give it to him because I waited a long time and he actually answered. So yes, you're very correct. Creating your own opportunities in the energy industry. Please, a round of applause for Adeyemi. We have something for you at the back. So our online audience, why I did not want you to partake in that question because you could have Googled it and the people here would not be. So I'm going to count 1 to 10. I need someone online to quickly tell me who the keynote speaker for last year was. 1, going. going. I don't think anyone knows it. I feel like throwing it back to the house. Okay, yes, Junior 4, fantastic. Yes, you are very correct, Dr. Miriam Kachuku. A round of applause to Junior 4. Very, very correct. Very correct. So, you said she knows it already. Yes, because I think Junior 4 is really a very active participant. Well, who is the next person after her? So that's Frank Egbede. So between yourself and Chinyere, we'll decide and let you guys know. But please, a round of applause to them. Don't forget, and why I ask that is, we don't need you to forget who these people are. Follow them, they've done a lot of fantastic things. Follow them, learn from their experiences, and try to see how you can tailor your own ambitions to what they've achieved so far, and even do better, because I know that's the prayer from our senior people to young professionals like us. So the next item on our agenda is the panel session. And we had the keynote address from our keynote speaker, Mr. Joe, a very explosive one. I believe he sets the tone for the panel discussion we're about to have. We're going to have a very rich one. I believe so, because everybody was just nodding as he was talking. And the other panel speakers that we have here, they are as well very seasoned professionals. They have a very robust experience. So do not hold back on any questions you have. I don't even think any question is personal. You can ask questions that relate to your personal growth in the industry, and even how maybe you're having challenges with acquiring relevant skills, time management. You can ask these questions as well, and I'm sure they will give you the steps they took to overcome all of these things during their career or in their career at the moment. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. The first person we have here is Kingsley Okenyi, who is the drilling supervisor, or who is a drilling supervisor at Shell. He's in the hall here, so you will see him come up. Kingsley Okenyi is currently a Shell drilling supervisor on a drill ship in the Bonga deepwater field offshore Nigeria. He has written papers that have featured in NICE, offshore Europe, and OTC. He attended FUTO. Oh, that's my uncle's school. The Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen, and is currently a doctorate candidate at the Schema Business School, France. Please, a round of applause as Mr. Kingsley comes up to the stage. Please don't stop clapping. Don't stop clapping. Let's encourage him. Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. And we have another panelist who is also here in the hall, Jadesola Onilenla, the strategy manager at Sahara Group. Jade is a strategy manager with Sahara Group and has over 10 years of experience in the energy and management consulting industry. She has a history of working in major companies like National Oil World Vaco, Schlumberger, and the Boston Consulting Group. I know a lot of us know those companies. Her competencies include business analysis, project management, strategy development, and performance improvement management. Jade's work currently revolves around uniting the needs of the climate and those of the financial markets, delivering the most appropriate energy mix for the African consumer by leveraging gas investments transition vehicle. She holds a bachelor's degree in petroleum engineering from Covenant University and an MBA from Duke University's Fuqua School of. Please, a round of applause for her. That's an outstanding profile. A round of applause for her. Round of applause. We have Mr. Chimere Alim as well, who's also a part of this panel. He's a production engineer with ExxonMobil, and he's a highly skilled engineer with over 10 years experience across reservoir surveillance and management, asset depletion planning, etc. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree in petroleum engineering from FUTO and Heriot Watts University and the Bonk, United Kingdom, respectively. He's also a very, very active SPE member and has served in multiple capacities within SPE, including Young Professionals and Career Guardians Chair for SPE Lagos section. He has also provided mentorship for students and young professionals, as well as the Students Program Chair for SPE Nigerian Council. He is a recipient of the SPE Regional Young Member Outstanding Service Award 2020. That's a fantastic, fantastic profile. Please, a round of applause as it comes up. He's also here. So this is me. I don't think I should do a lot of introduction, but I am a professional who works with Seplat Energy. So I work with Seplat, the building we're currently in, and I am a HSE professional. So let's skip. I don't think I want to do a lot of introduction here, but yes, we are about to have a very hot panel session, but I don't think it will be complete without having our keynote speaker here as well. We need to bring him to the stage, though we've introduced. Please, a round of applause again for him. I don't want to do another introduction because we have introduced him earlier. So yes, the stage is set. I hope we are ready to ask our questions. So please, before we ask, let's just note it. Can you come sit in the middle? Let me just stay at the edge. Yes. I would like to invite our section chairperson to recognize a very distinguished individual in our midst here. And yes, please, Mrs. Fayama.
Oh, yes, thank you very much, Jamaka. So I would like to recognize the presence of one of our BOT members, Mr. Kofi Sago. Sir, welcome. Please wave your hand so the team can recognize you. So before we leave here today, I would invite him to also give the vote of thanks, because these are industry veterans and we always pick their brains when we get the opportunity. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for that. Okay. Mr. Joe, you did a fantastic job during your keynote address, and a lot of us were just noting down things that you have said. You started with the definition for energy transition and the impact of energy use on our economy. You also touched on the global energy mix and local energy mix. So a lot of things you highlighted. And you know, one thing that struck me during the whole, when I was sent this is, and I'm going to take it from Imperial College. We all know Imperial College, their website. So I just want to read something off it. But before I'm going to read this, then I'll ask each of our panelists to please just give us a brief, you know, just something that they feel about the topic, which is the energy transition, acquiring the relevant skills in today's dynamic world. But I just want to read something, and I hope that this is going to also give us a bit of context on why people are concerned about what kind of skills do I need to acquire. So currently on the Imperial College London's website under Petroleum Geoscience MSc, and I'm reading this, the Petroleum Geoscience MSc course will be suspended at the end of the academic year 2020 to 2021. Our petroleum engineering course would also be suspended at the end of 2021 to 2022 academic year. Suspending both MSc petroleum courses provides us with the opportunity to reassess the skill sets needed in today's broader geo-energy industry, and to be able to come up with a new fit-for-purpose MSc course offering for 2022 and beyond. So you can see that even schools are looking at reevaluating the courses that they have, the outline, what they are offering to students, the value they are providing through their education. So I just want us to just think about it a bit. mull over it in the hall before I give our panelists hand over to them to just speak a little bit on what they feel people should be thinking about when it comes to the energy transition. So that question, I just want us to think about it. Or rather, the statement I just read on that website, just think about it. And you can also use it to ask your questions when the time comes up. So the first person I would like to, I think I'll start from the extreme there, Mr. Chimere. Please, what do you think really about the energy transition and this topic, this theme that we've chosen? What are your thoughts on it?
All right. So once again, will I say good afternoon, everyone? So on the topic, the concept of energy transition, first of all, I'd like to say a very big thank you to our keynote speaker. That was very, very insightful, even for me myself, just listening and taking in some of the things that I know and just looking at it from a totally different angle, right? Looking at it from a different perspective. I've had a lot of people come up to me and ask that particular question. And if you look at the summary of what he said, right, the energy mix, right, energy transition has always been going on. And to your point, if you look at what you read from the Imperial College, he talked a little bit about, he talked a lot about reskilling yourself, and instead of staying in silos, looking at the broader picture, saying, okay, what do we need to do to solve maybe today's energy challenges or the world's challenges? If you look back in time in history, there was a time civil engineering was very popular during the construction age. There are times, you know, for us in Nigeria, petroleum energy, and it's coming to the point where maybe we need to redefine what we need, the skills that we need. So the way it's supposed to work, and generally, which is why I like that excerpt from the industries, from the universities, the university is supposed to produce graduates that are going to solve the needs of the society. So if having to scale back and rebrand the course is what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done. So what skills needs to be acquired? I think Dr. Joe spent a lot of time highlighting a lot of those skills. So I wouldn't just reiterate that so that other people can have the opportunity to talk about it as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kinsley, what are your thoughts as well?
So I'll just speak directly to the Imperial College statement. You know, so they said they want to reassess to see how their petroleum engineering department can serve this energy transition. I think that's a brilliant take because if you separate what you have to do in the future, right, for the energy mix, you know, obviously you still have to drill wells. You have to drill wells to produce petroleum, oil, gas. You have to also drill well for your carbon capture. There are different skills required. So it's still reservoir engineering, right? What you used to do as reservoir engineering may be different in the case of carbon capture, right? So you could even change the name from reservoir to whatever it is. But you see all those, your reservoir engineering equations will still stand, right? Your Darcy's law will still stand. Because in a way, even before reservoir engineering, it was I think in civil engineering and some part of mechanical engineering, right? So we changed the name to reservoir engineering, and it's okay for us to rechange the name to something else because it's going to cover something more broader. So that's one part. The second part is, it depends on where you are, right? So in places like in maybe the US, in Nigeria, that still, for example, still need oil and gas. You know, the Imperial College is in the UK, right? The UK, where they are in their transition, is way, way ahead of us. We still need oil and gas. We still need electricity and power, right? Maybe we are not there yet to transition, right, immediately, because we still need to drill so many wells, unlike them, right? So we shouldn't think about it as, oh, the UK or Imperial College is doing this. In Nigeria, we need to do this just like they're doing it. We can still wait right, till we see where we are for us to do it. But I'll end with this. This oil, right, and gas is a limited resource. In fact, oil will run out with this present demand, it's going to run out in less than 50 years if we don't discover more. However, everything we use in the world is either metal-based, hydrocarbon-based, or wood-based. Now, if your goal is to save the climate, obviously you don't want to be cutting trees to do things, right? So every single thing about your plastics, your phones, your clothes, fertilizers, your ceramics, most of all these things are oil-based. Imagine if we increase, let's say Africa, for example, uses oil just like India or even just like the US. It means oil will run out faster than we think. So energy transition is actually very important because we have to look for another method, right? Maybe instead of using burning oil in our cars, we can preserve that for things like rubber, right? For things like your gel, for things like what you use in the pharmaceutical. Because what we're doing right now is that we're just wasting it a lot, right? So we can preserve that and maybe increase the lifespan of this oil. Or we can increase the way we explore or assess it. So things like, so instead of going 8,000 meters, we can now go 10,000 meters, at least to increase our pool of the resource we have. But we know technology is not that easy, right? Or technology in that area is still limited, right? So what we can, I think the energy transition is a good way to increase that pool so we can use this oil for more useful things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinsley. Thank you very much. Mr. Joe, you spoke quite extensively during your address on the energy transition and of course its impact and some of the skills that you need to develop. But I just want to ask right now, what can we do right now to join this wave of energy transition as a young professional? Can you just give us maybe very, very clear steps on what we can do right now?
Okay, thank you. As a young professional, I think your first step would be to look at yourself, assess your skills. What do I know and what do I need to know? It starts from that, doing that self-appraisal. And then, of course, if there are skill sets that you think you'll be needing, maybe not today, how can you figure out how can you acquire them? It could be on your current job. It could be something that may necessitate a departmental change, whatever. But I think you need to have a goal, set that goal and say, okay, I'm doing this now. In 3, 4 years, 5 years, I need to be able to do A, B, C, D. Position yourself, but that starts now. So you start, organizations don't change very quickly, but it's people, it's the changes, the cumulative effect of changes in people that changes organization, right? So that, if you have that in mind, then you'll be able to plan. So that's what I will say in the near term. But of course, as it's a journey, as you go a lot more, we'll get a bit more comfortable and then we can take a bit more risk. My colleague here, Kinsley, said something very important that people lose sight of. Our resources are not unlimited, they will run out. Again, the complete suite of skills that you need to continue to supply the world with energy is key. We need to constantly build that reserve, whatever source it came from. So that's why I say think energy, think green. So when you have that big vision that our business is not just to produce oil and gas, our business is to serve the world with energy, to address the energy needs of the world, then I think we would have started having that conversation.
Thank you very much, sir, for that succinct response. Thank you very much. Jadisola, I would just like to ask you just a few questions, 2 questions actually, because I saw your profile very solid. How important are certifications in the oil and gas industry? And also, do you think that people will face certain challenges in acquiring the relevant skills? Yes, those 2 questions.
All right, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jadisola. So this topic is actually really interesting to me because in 2005, when I was going to get my bachelor's, I had the same discussion with my uncle about petroleum engineering. And the story at the time was that oil was going to run out and this was a waste of everybody's time. Unfortunately, none of us here have a crystal ball to actually tell you what to go and study and say, you know, do this certification or go and do this course. But I think what we can do for you is just help you to see how to think. We can let you know the data available to you so that you can make your own decisions from there. You know, Joe's talk was so impressive to me. It was very interesting because I actually have that exact chart in my paper. And when you think about it, as an African that is based in Africa, you can't really look at transition as somebody that is maybe based in China. So as an African based in Africa, you want to do two things. First is you want to look at the current condition of the continent you live in. And the second thing, you want to look at the global scope because that's what applies to you. So in looking at the chart Joe shared earlier about energy transition, you see that before the Industrial Revolution, all we had was biomass. So biomass is like when you burn wood or burn agricultural produce to get energy. And then with the Industrial Revolution came coal. So it took about 100 years for the ratio of coal to biomass to be about 50 to 50%. In the 1960s, we then had oil and gas, we then had nuclear, and then today we have renewables, we have hydro, we have nuclear, etc. And I think the important thing to take away is that no energy source actually disappears. Like he said, oil and gas is here and it's going to be here for a while. So if no energy source disappears, all we get is, you know, there's a reduction in the former energy source. So for example, oil and gas is not going to grow as quickly as renewables. Why? Because some people are artificially changing the market by incentivizing people to invest in renewables. So what does that tell you? Two things you can take away. First is that your skill set is more important than your role, like he said. You know, whatever role it is you are given doesn't really matter. The important thing is what am I able to do? So for example, if you're a PhD, what PhDs are good in doing is sitting down and breaking down, you know, creating bodies of knowledge that don't exist. And that is very important, but I'll get to that. And the second thing you want to take away is that you have to be excellent at what you do, because that's the only way you can stand the set of time. So that's on the global scope. Now, thinking about it from an African, you know, what does Africa represent in the global energy mix? Africa actually only contributes about 3% of these emissions you talk about, compared to China that does about 25%. So if transition is based on equality and equity, trying to force Africa to move at the same pace as China cannot work. Second thing is, like he said, you know, growth is driven by energy consumption. The more energy you consume, the more you're able to do. And what are the numbers saying? Africa today, we're 1.2 billion out of 7 billion. It means 1 out of every 6 people is African. Now, there's also data that shows us that Nigeria has more babies every day than the entire south of Europe, only Nigeria. So it means by 2030, our population is expected to double. By 2050, 1 out of every 4 people in the world will be African. And by the end of the century, which is 2100, about 1 out of every 3 people will be African. Now, even if we solve for people moving to Canada or people moving to Madagascar, Africa is about to triple in population. As it is already with our population of today, we're already lagging behind in infrastructure, in roads, in energy consumption, etc., which means our provision of energy has to almost go 5 times in order to meet the demand we have today. So now when you put both things together, you are in Africa where the population is increasing, there's industrialization. Africa actually produces about 500 billion every year of goods that is exported within Africa. You know, if you think about fintech, for example, Africa is the largest moving market in fintech. We're having more children. So it means there's a lot more people. We need more energy. You know, it's just not sustainable to say, you know, we're going to pull the plug on oil and gas. And you know, what does that mean for you? What that means for you is there's opportunity for you in the existing field, which is oil and gas. There's opportunity for you in the new field, which is renewables. And there's that intersection there where there's a gradual move. So for example, financial services, they say we cannot sponsor oil and gas, but you do need oil and gas. So you have to present things like carbon capture to them and say, look, you know, or carbon credits. You know, there's a lot of research. Like he said, renewables are very intermittent by nature, which means, I mean, they're intermittent in 2 ways. First is places like Africa get about 3,000 kilowatts of sunlight every year. Places like China do not get it. So it means, first of all, there's no uneven distribution. The second thing is the availability. There's no sunlight every time, you know, from maybe 9 to 12, you have sun, and from 9 to 6, and what happens to the rest of the day? But, you know, I'll just take what he said further by saying, you know, We can then work on storage. Right now, the solar storage batteries are about 6 to 8 hours. But if you're good with technology and you're good in research, you can actually work with the people that improve the lifespan of these batteries to go from 6 to 8 hours to 3 to 6 months. And then, you can contribute in your way. I think the entire takeaway is this: as an African living in Africa and working in energy, the opportunity for you is actually endless. I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I would now throw it to the House. If we have any questions for our panelists, can we please signify so that they can respond to your questions? Okay, yes, I can see someone at DME. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would first of all drop just a very short comment on Mr. Joe's presentation, Mr. Joseph's presentation. And the only word that's coming to my mind is blatant. Like, that's the best word I can put to it. It's only valuable when we have information condensed, placard, and thrown out to us, so we can really know what we are after and where we currently are. And as such, it gives me like time to, while I was listening here, to reflect on myself and ask my question. I'm only lucky to have my feet in just a single pool of these several technology transition drivers: technology, policy, environment, and the other one, economics. Technology, because I'm an undergraduate. And as such, I tend to spend more time researching and try to solve more problems. And I still don't know how they apply to the real world. I'm still going to that direction. While I am trying to make an attempt to find a path in my career, I have pleasure. I have a flair, I would call it a flair, an academic flair for CCUS. And I'm trying to develop a paper on it. And in my very little span of probably 30 to 60 hours of research, I have only noticed that there is no much effort of Nigerians or Africans towards innovation. So I'll paraphrase, or I'll phrase my question in such a way. Given you guys have experience in your careers in policy and in the government, how much or what is the willingness of the government to accept or adopt local innovation? And I feel local innovation is somewhat spur specialized development. We are only laggards in the sense of, we look at the ideas, softwares, and development and innovation of people outside Ivy League schools and whatnot, and we sort of try to make a photocopy of that here in Nigeria, giving us the impression that diplomacy works in that way. But to what level of willingness is our government, is industries ready to accept local innovation and sort of apply it to real life problems in my country? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adeyemi. So I would like everyone to share their thoughts on that. Maybe we'll start with Raphael. So then we go around the. Oh, sorry, Raphael Kinsley. Yes, I think Raphael is your brother. When I looked at you, reminded me of him. Okay.
So your question is very apt, but it's a question that is not easy to answer. We need innovation, right? The only way you can solve typical problems is when you innovate, right, with that typical problems. So for example, in Nigeria, we don't have lights, or we don't have a grid light. How do you solve the problem? What we've done is to do, we've decentralized. Basically, every house, every building have their generator, right? So we've decentralized to solve that problem. So I can charge my phone, I could do so many things. However, that decentralization is not very efficient, right? So you need another innovation to say, you know what, how can I make this whole process more efficient, right? And that's where local solutions come into place. Sometimes we do them, it's slow, right? Sometimes it's not. So for example, if you look at the estates, so instead of each building having their own generator, we have a big generator, maybe a diesel generator, a gas plant to cover 400 buildings. and that will make the cost of petrol or cost of power cheaper. That is also innovation, right? Some people don't see it that way, but it's a gradual process in which we are making ourselves, number one, have light or have power. Number two, be more efficient. However, the problem is we need that very, I would say, frog leap or mass innovation, right, in Nigeria, where we are not seeing. And if you look at how we invest in innovation, in research, in education, right, it's not compared to the rest of the world. It's probably 100 times less than South Africa, maybe another 10,000 less than China, and 100 times less than the US. So we're not investing a lot of resources, a lot of time on that, right? And that is the question for the government to solve.
Okay, that's a very interesting angle, but maybe I think Jadi is ready to go. So please.
Yeah, just on top of that. So, I mean, there's really no point acting like we're not Nigerian. The Nigerian government hasn't been like the most helpful in investing in innovation and technology. So I won't even think too much about waiting for them to do it. But like Joe said, you guys are born in such a good time. People are literally throwing money at you. If you had a good idea, I have absolutely no doubt that you're able to raise money. The AFDBs of the world, the IFCs of the world, the World Banks of the world, they literally have money sitting down, just waiting for you to bring your innovation. So if it's something you're sure about, something you want to do, I'm not too worried. Like if it's a valid idea and there's actually beauty in it and there's value to it, I'm not too worried about your ability to raise money for it.
Okay, Chairman, you want to go?
Okay. So just to add to that and just to buttress that point, I think the key word there is value, which is tied to economics, and then scalability. Right. If you have an idea, right, yeah, and if you think about the scientific process, you try to concoct something in a lab and then you see how you can expand or grow that idea. So the pitch or the selling point for local products in quotes, based on your question, is in my mind, is I'm assuming it's going to be cheaper costs, right? So cheaper costs is at the end of the day supposed to tie or get back into the bottom line. So if you remember what Joe said about, as we think about going forward, our proposals have to be cheaper in quotes than what we are currently doing today, in order to, because you have to account for the incremental costs you're going to have to spend to, you know, get money from your bank to show that, oh, I'm doing a lot of this in carbon capture. So at the end of the day, the key word for me there is that concept, you know, value adding. And by value adding, is it going to, does it make economic sense? I'm not talking from the government point of view. I'm just talking of, if I'm an investor, if I'm a businessman and you're bringing this idea to me, what am I thinking about? What value does it bring? And then how can I commercialize this idea? So if those things are met, you know, to what Jadi said, there are some infrastructure that exists today that tries to, you know, fund such ideas. So maybe I'll let you talk about maybe what government can do as well.
You almost think I work for government.
You have worked for the government. For
Okay.
a bit.
Okay. Very good question, my brother. I'll start this way. If we are going to develop Nigeria, if we're going to develop Africa, we will do it in spite of government, not with government. Okay, so let me get that through the door. So let's not delude ourselves that at some point we are going to have a responsible government. I mean, I'm a Nigerian. I have a right to my views, right? And I've been on that side. Before I got there, I used to think that there were people who were working our problems. Then I went into the room and I saw there was nobody in there. So, so I have a sense of what it is. So my point is this, and I will give you a very short story. 2006, I was doing something with the bank, and so I'll go home and I'll tell my wife, and we were discussing, and I held the strong view. So they had actually piloted an ATM box, ATM, right? And I was very critical of it. And like, these guys are just, they don't know what they're doing. A year after, there's ATM everywhere. I'm telling you, this is real. So, and with it came an earthquake in banking. So I'm trying to relate innovation to how, let's take Nigerian banking. I said 2006, I was arguing that, there's no light, those ATMs will be failing. I had 1,000,001 reasons why I think ATM technology will not work in Nigeria. And I'm saying that a year after I had spent my energy arguing that ATM was a dead end, right? It transformed banking in this country. So I came back and I said, wow. So we could get even a ATM that works on solar. Those things were retrofitted for Nigeria, right? At the time we were saying, the people that started it actually did the cards we had. We're actually more secure than the credit cards in the US. Up to now. It is now that the US is actually going into the cheap thing. So we kind of leapfrogged. This is just an example of what the private sector can do. And there's a reason I had to do this, because this is private sector driven, and then the regulatory environment will reluctantly follow. We must do that in oil and gas. That is the only way. So if you have innovations, let the oil and gas private sector buy into it. The regulators will normally follow. Do you understand? But don't look up to government to fix it. Let's fix it ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that question. I will quickly go online and pick one more question. Technical, please, can you expand the chat box? And if you're online and you're unmuted, kindly mute yourself. Please expand the screen, technical, please. So I can just take one question from there. Okay, this is really tiny. Just stand. Okay, okay, well, some people have, I want to just read out what someone has put down. While Sir Joe was speaking, he spoke of data analytics, science, and AI as relevant skills in the energy transition. How can I shape my learning journey to merge with interest in renewable energy? So I think you've addressed this before, but you could just shed a bit of light on this for Praise William.
Okay, so how can you, so remember I said the key requirement is that these technologies have to bring efficiency and cost effectiveness to what we currently do. And AI, artificial, those things have fundamentally changed the way we do business, and with significant economic advantages. So if you have those skills, just think about it this way. If you have skills to write networks that can solve problems and all that, you reduce, I mean, I don't know if anybody, you know about surrogate modeling is a kind of neural network for modeling, right? So, and I'll go back to the modeling. As a reservoir engineer, we used to spend months building models, reservoir models, months. So if you have technology and you can build a surrogate model that can run in seconds, and you can build it in less than a week, you've brought significant cost saving. So, and you answered the same question, right? So it brings unusual efficiency to what you do. And that is one way oil and gas will remain competitive, even when you layer on the cost of capture and sequestration. So my point is, whatever technology can reduce the cost of producing oil and gas, so much so that we can absorb the cost of carbon capture and still remain competitive, is what the industry needs to continue to move on. So go learn that technology, whether it's AI, machine learning, whatever it is, and see how you can apply it to a problem that the industry currently faces. If you can provide that answer, you would have significantly changed or improved our odds as an industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Before I come back to the house here, I just have a question for Jadi, because someone sent in a question, and I think it's because of your gender. So the person is asking, what does it take to excel as a female leader? Are there still biases and how can it be broken?
Excellence. It's just excellence. So people can resist a lot of things, who you are, what you look like, and where you come from, where you want to school, but nobody can resist excellence. You walk into your room and you make sure, I mean, as a woman, you probably have to work a little bit harder to be recognized by men, but you need to put in that work, especially initially. You can't start off your career sloppy. You can't start off your career saying, you know, you had period pains is why you didn't come to work. Those things matter. I mean, if somebody works for 20 days a month, you work for 17 days, you know, you add that every month, you take three or 5 days every month, you know, you add that 12 months, that's 60 days you didn't work in the year. You can't expect to be promoted as quickly as the other person. So you have to be excellent. You don't have a choice. You just have to be excellent. People cannot resist excellence.
Thank you very much. It's a fantastic answer. Excellence, excellence. I have noted that down for my own benefit, but thank you for that. Excellence. Mr. Chimeri, someone is also asking, personal branding and networking experiences, how do we maximize opportunities through this? The question was addressed to you. Yes.
So it's a personal branding.
And networking, how do you maximize opportunities through this?
So for me, you know, just above our technical skills, which we try to acquire, you know, networking is one thing. So for SPE, for instance, that's one platform that is structured, that provides that platform for young industry professionals, students to network with professionals in the industry, right? So for my own personal story, and I think I've mentioned this a few times, one of the ways I got tied into SPE activities was basically through, you know, in the process of volunteering, get to work with professionals back then as a student, you know, in the industry. So that putting in that work, right, at that time helps people recognize, you know, okay, this person is hardworking. It helps people tell some traits about you, right? As a student, you might never have gotten the opportunity to meet with maybe Dr. Joe here, but maybe the fact that you attended this session organized by SPE gives you the ability to meet up with him, have some chat, talk one-on-one, and gain a bit of experience, right? So I think for me, networking is invaluable, and I think it's a skill that is not talked about very much right from our school days, right? I think the other thing people need to do is to be able to look at what skills am I pursuing, or what do I need, and where am I in that journey, right? A lot of times I hear, you know, things like, okay, you need this, you need this, you need this, and people recognize those facts. But a lot of times, how do I get those things done? Those skills gap, right? How do I, so for instance, if Dr. Joe talked today about, maybe for instance, I'm just giving an instance, communication, right? If you're not a good public speaker, what am I putting in place to close that skills gap, right? There are groups in Lagos today, there are Toastmasters group where people talk about the art of public speaking, right? How do I get engaged in those sessions? If it's technical skills, if it's digital skills, right? It's not just about going and learning those trainings. Also, how do I apply those trainings to solve a need, either in my company or in the industry or whatever? Those are things that can help you build that brand, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that networking is not just about collecting contacts, it's about planting relationships. So it's not a one-time thing. You're at an event and that's where it ends. You need to build that relationship, and it's a symbiotic relationship, not parasitic. Most people will say, oh, she has to give me a lot, or I have to learn this. I've decided this is my mentor. I would take everything from him. But sometimes this should be a symbiotic relationship where both parties benefit from the networking process. I don't know if any other person, okay, Raf.
So,
Kinsley has something else to say. Thank you.
So this is, especially for young people, right? This question is very apt. So first, networking. Second, your skills? How do you tell people you have the skills? So the importance of networking, right, is for you to meet people and to share from their knowledge. What does that mean? You meet someone for the first time, you ask the person certain questions, or maybe you don't even have to meet the person one-on-one, you just listen to the person speak. And the person says something like what he just said like a few minutes ago. We need wells to be cheaper for us to incorporate carbon capture and for it to make economic sense. So hearing those three things, I just heard it, right? The way he put it for the first time. Next thing I'm saying, wow, this is so brilliant, right? It means carbon capture as part of your economics is very important. So what it means is if I have a skill, a carbon capture skill, that is the kind of angle I will start thinking about. Wow. So it means carbon capture is coming very soon, or we're going to do carbon capture very soon. What are the policies required for carbon capture? What are the missing technology required? I start to think, or even a business opportunity. I start to think that way. So networking allows you to have that aha moment with people that probably know more than you or know something different. Now, it also gives you that self-reflection, saying, okay, what skills do I have now? This is what this guy is saying. This is what is going to be new. What skills do I have now to be able to participate? Then you say, okay, I have data analytics skills. What am I going to use that for? I have AI skills, or I have coding skills, or I know how to solve partial differential equation. What am I going to use that for? Right? So like you said, I'm learning things that I don't know how to apply. It's in networking, by talking to people, you will understand how your partial differential equation is applied in the real world, right? The first time I heard, so I was listening to a YouTube video on how they know that the earth is warming. That was when I realized that the equations I learned in reservoir, in fact, it was the reservoir engineers that told them, or the models, the reservoir engineering models we used, that is what they applied in the clouds or in the sky to know that the earth temperature is warming, or that CO2 is increasing, right, in the earth. So you can see these kind of aha moments that can happen with networking. Then finally, once you meet somebody, right, maybe in a networking event like this, try and learn the skills of, asking certain questions and following up in a certain way. It's not just, oh, I need job, right? Or give me your card. Look at yourself and say, this is who I am. This is the skills I have. What do I have that this person will like, or this person will want to use, or this person will enjoy, right? And the person might say, wow, this guy knows this guy knows that, or this guy is interested in this. The person might start to teach you or put you in that line that will help you maybe learn better, or align your skills better, or even get, the job, you want to get. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kinsley.
Okay.
Okay, you have something to...
Yeah, let me just quickly chip in there. He made a very vital point about the value of network. But what we tend to forget as especially young professionals is that, the industry, we are in an industry that isolates you. So please, let's get this right. Our industry, by its peculiar nature, isolates you from the general economy, from the real world, right? I don't know. So you must step out, deliberately step out from that place, okay, to build vital networks. And like you said, it has been mutually beneficial. So what am I looking at? How many of you have published any paper in a non-industry journal on our industry? How many have attended a conference that is not oil and gas? Right? So lawyers write papers and come and present in SPE Conais, right? That's one way. The few lawyers I know who are oil and gas lawyers, that's how I met them. Many years ago, Jimovia, I sat in an SPE conference. I didn't know it was Jimovia beside me. Many years when he was still MD of Zenith Bank, right? At Hilton. And so he started talking to me and I'm like, and I looked at him, I said, this face looks familiar. He paid. He came as a conference attendee. He didn't come as MD of some bank, right? So he was building his network. You think he didn't have better things to do than to come and be listening to some people? No, that's not what it is. Very poor people, by the way. So he had better things to do. But he came and he attended SPE conferences year after year for some time. And he will come and as a non-member, sit through the sessions, listening to people, gist with people, try to get to know them. That is effective. Only God knows how many accounts he got doing stuff, So my point is, step out of this. You see, this industry has a way to make you feel irate. That's what those reggae people say, right? You have share clinic, you go to share this thing, you do. So you spend all your life in one cocoon, right? There is a world very large out there. Please seek it out. Don't sit in and think everything is fine. It's not. Go out there. The solutions to most of our industry problems reside outside. They are not inside. So the winners are those who go out there and bring those solutions to our industry. Thank you.
So just one more thing on networking. So I just wanted to say that on networking, two things. First thing is your network is not just the people that are on the panel. A big part of your network is your friends, the people you hang out with every day. In my entire career, all the help I've received have always been from people around me, not from people I met at conferences. That has never worked for me. So again, it brings me to the second point, which is excellence. People should be able to complain about anything. As a woman, maybe they say your wig does not slay. As a man, maybe they say you are broke, whatever, but nobody should be able to complain about the quality of your work. Somebody here has said something about carbon capture now. You don't know which of your colleagues is listening and is also thinking about carbon capture. Both of them meet up outside the door. They start a startup, and in 5 years, you hear they sold the startup for $2 million. So please, don't worry. I'm sure you've heard about 3 degrees of separation. You're only 3 steps away from Obama. Don't worry about meeting Obama. Don't worry about adding me on LinkedIn. I may not be able to help you. But the person sitting next to you, you can actually start a startup with the person. I just wanted to encourage you. Don't look down on your mates. Your network is more the people around you than the people you meet once in a while in conferences.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I hear we have someone who has a question in the audience. Yes. Okay. You can go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me? Oh, yes, you can. Hello, everyone. I'm Cromwell, recent graduate of Covenant University, downstream business analyst.
Hi.
Be there. Oh, who said hi? Okay. So I just want to say a big thank you. Oh, it's not me. A big thank you for this panel session. It's been very informative. And something that Dr. Joe talked about, I think really struck out to me, because you said that we would have to progress as a nation in spite of government, not because of government. And someone who has gotten exposure to the public sector, I've seen that they're actually waiting on the private sector, low-key, they have the power, right? But they're waiting on someone who is going to have enough momentum to really do something that they will follow suit on. And so I want to talk about the industry, and I wanted to ask, something you said at the end was quite profound for me. I noticed that we don't have local innovation in this side of the world when it comes to the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Like many of our solutions, even my experience while I was interning now, I noticed that most of the solutions were things, and most of the case studies were from outside the world. And there's really not that liaison between the industry and the universities to engage these minds to solve this kind of problems. And I also just want to ask that, is the industry looking towards those kind of things? Because I don't think the innovation and communication gap that we lost, because I think we lost that narrative because we allowed the renewable and the green and the environmentalists hijack the narrative. And really, if you talk to anybody around Gen Zs or co about the oil and gas industry, what you hear is dirty place. And so we are really losing most of the good talent to tech and other industries because of these kind of things. And so is the industry learning from that? Are we learning to be more open-minded or open-handed, like dealing with the universities, and also just putting less barriers between entries? Because I realize like tech industry gets a lot of nice minds, because really take a couple of Coursera courses tomorrow and you can say you're a data scientist. I mean, before you know it, you're already working with a company in UK or something like that. So the point is that, like, is the industry learning from this to really change? And I don't think that isolated thing you talked about is hard to believe, because I think it actually does isolate. So is the industry learning to grow? That's number one question.
Oh, you want to stand up while we answer it?
I do.
Okay, my sense is that yes, we've learned quite a bit. The industry, remember, the industry is not a static entity, right? So the industry is going through, the industry has come a long way. We used to have the Seven Sisters. I don't know if you remember, and you can see the consolidation. So the industry has tended to change to reflect its realities, especially back home here. I sense that in maybe 10, 15 years from now, it will be a totally different industry. So yes, it's a constant struggle to adjust to the demands of the market and the environment in which we operate in. So are we learning? I think yes. Can we do better? There's a lot we can do differently. That's my sense. So, but we can't do it if we don't have capability and capacity to do it differently. And that's where you come in. So when we say, you know, why we're here today is to make sure that we direct you to start looking at the right things, right? Away from what people like us looked at 20 years ago. So the idea is to get you to start thinking differently from the way we thought. Oh, we had a nice industry. We had a closed industry, right? And you know, everything was taken care of. Your children will likely go to a Shell or ExxonMobil school. You know, that was the industry we had. I'm not sure Seplat is setting up a school, right? So you can see change in the way Seplat doesn't have an aviation department. Mobi had. So if I wanted to go anywhere, I flew in a complete plane, right? So it's a different mindset. The industry is certainly changing. And I'll give you another reason why we will have to change by force. Economics. Economics trumps it all. The industry has to be lighter, has to be more efficient. So that drives a lot of change. So it's important that, but again, we need you. We need your group to go out there. You're the ones that have access to the young kids. So we have a bad rep. You're not going to teach a 50-year-old man that the industry is not a dirty industry, but we can teach a 7-year-old that the industry is indeed an industry that has helped the world, not damage it. So it's really important that that message goes out there. I think that the industry, personally, not because I work here, I think that the industry has been a force for good. But in the process, yes, a few things could have been done differently. But are we going to say because of that, we will cut our nose to spite our face? No. Oil and gas still remains a very efficient and cost-effective fuel. And what we need to figure out is a way to use it more environmentally responsibly. That's what we need to do. I mean, look at me. I mean, everything you're wearing, look at the shirt you have, right? Polypropylene. We can't. So when we go out there, you know, and we say, the environmentalists will have you believe that maybe we need to start planting cotton. We're all wearing cotton shirt, right? I don't know how far that we can go with that, right? There is, if you stand your shoe from all the way down, there's oil and gas all over you, right? So all we need to figure out is how can we continue to use this resource, but use it more responsibly. And it's in your court. I don't know if that answers your question.
Hello.
Technical.
Yes, so I hear. Okay, so I think one thing that was skipped, I understand what you're saying in terms of us as people who are more connected to the next generation. We are in a better place to communicate, and I understand that. Is there going to be a better relationship between the industry and universities in the coming years? That's what I want to know.
I hope so. Let me put it that way. Okay. And the reason I say I hope so is we have done a lot to try to improve that relationship. The SPE had it as a program. We had what we call the R&D project under Chike. We've pushed it over the years, but it's caught on. NCDMB today has a research fund that universities in the oil and gas can access, right? It's operational. And there has been a lot of industry activity around bridging the gap between the academia and the industry to make sure that one, the academia gets better funded, right? And two, that the academia does research that answers to industry problems. It's a symbiotic relationship. Is there enough? There's enough, I'll say it this way, there's enough concern at very many levels to make sure that that process works, because that's the only way we can solve uniquely Nigerian industry problems, right? We can't get the research institutions in The Hague or Texas to solve our problems at Ibono Beach, right? So that is going on. That is something that I hope in the coming years will start bearing fruit, where the industry gets to drive research in the universities, say, this is our problem, solve it. And then we'll put money behind it to say, while you're solving it, you need to be eating, right? So that kind of relationship is important. I hope it works. My sense is we've started the journey, and hopefully in a few years' time, we can all look at it and see whether it's working or not.
Okay.
The second one. Sorry,
Okay,
last one.
please summarize your question.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. So I don't know, for some reason, the narrative that fossils are dirty. I don't know, are fossils really dirty, or is our technology dirty? And I realized that Saudi Aramco has a different approach to this fossil problem, because they are now working with like automobile companies to improve their combustion technologies, and we're seeing gains in that direction. So are other companies thinking in that same direction? Because I think we're kind of allowing people paint fossils a particular way when it's just how we burn it that's the problem. Do you understand?
Yeah, and it's the message that industry, I think we dropped the ball as an industry in communicating better, right? And we tended to think that our responsibility ended when we sold the barrel, right? We as an industry, we thought what happened downstream didn't matter to us. And now we know better. It's important what happened all the way down to the end user, right? So we should communicate better. We should get involved in how our product is used. That for me is the lesson that we should take away from all that has happened, and communicate better. Dirty or not dirty, I mean, coal is still on. Is coal not dirty? I mean, we can discuss that, right? So the imperatives for me is economics, is policy, is technology. And in all these three areas, as an industry, we should engage. There's no other solution to it.
Okay, thank you very much. So while it's tempting to continue this discussion on and on, we just have time for only one question. And I see a female. Okay, he has been raising up his hand. So I'll just let the two of you speak. The lady and the man in suit. So the lady, please, you can go on with your question.
Everyone, thank you the organizers for this panel session. So my question is that, are there no programs bringing in young graduates into the industry? Because I've been clouded by this narrative that there are no much opportunities of jobs in the industry. And I see it happening around me, especially among the graduates from my university, I realized most of them are either switching career or going into something entirely. Even in our last industry week, we're asking most of the finalists the percentage of them that affirm they are going to practice this industry will lead to. So, and even our seniors sometimes advise us that try and get other to kind of get that the Oil&Gas industry is somehow crowded. So I want to ask, are there no programs bringing in these young graduates and teaching them the necessary skills to grow in this industry? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I must appreciate you for your presentation. I really learned a lot. Okay, my question is very brief and simple. There's a great clamor for AI, that's artificial intelligence and machine learning in the industry. I read an article somewhere that the disadvantages of AI and machine learning, that it will cause unemployment in the future years, and unemployment will cause low in GDP. And introduce something to us as woman, it's also like the chart will go low. So encouraging this, won't it affect us in the future? Because when there's a roadblock to doing something, what's the need of employing someone to do it? And to really affect the company's GDP. Like my grandpa was a draftsman in the Nigeria paper mill, but that was because there were machines that could do it. He was relieved of his job. So we are going to be encouraging things that will still send us out of the industries. Thank you.
Okay, before we address that, just one more question online. Can the person speak now so we address all the questions at the same time? Please go ahead and speak. I think you've been unmuted. Abisoye. Abisoye, we can't hear you. Okay, Abisoye just sent a message, can't unmute. Please, technical, unmute Abisoye. Oh, okay, please type your question quickly so that we don't.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon, Abisoye. I can hear you.
Thank you very much to SPE for this wonderful forum. So my question is directed to Joe and to Jadisola, and it's with regards to natural gas as the transition fuel for Nigeria. My question is, and I'm very happy that Joe is a policy expert, what would he say that is the issue in terms of the commercialization of natural gas in Nigeria? You know, considering the fact that we have the natural gas commercialization program, natural gas expansion program, natural gas policy, what would he say should be the strategy of companies that are looking to switch into natural gas? And how does a petroleum engineer, for example, get the needed skill sets and in order to be able to give expertise to the companies that want to switch into natural gas or want to use the natural gas as a transition fuel, for example, into CNG or LPG. What are we lacking and how can we go about it? What strategy can we use to efficiently switch to natural gas? Thank you.
Okay, I'll just go first. So I'll answer the gentleman's question about data and AI. So human beings were created to think. We were not created for manual labor. So what's been happening is over the years, before technology came, human beings were doing labor that was not very cognitive. So you required human beings to do everything. And as technology is coming, they take away the part that is very manual, the part that doesn't require any thinking, the part that is mechanical. Human beings are not built for that. But what you realize is, as there's more AI and there's more data analysis, there becomes a greater need for the people that actually interpret that data. So what you see is a lot of AI pushes data to you. But what we need now is people that actually have the critical thinking to look at numbers and tell us what the numbers mean. So for example, reservoir engineers are going into the cloud to get a number. I mean, if someone gives you a number and says 10, right? What do you do with the number? You don't know. So what you need is like relationship. Like, what does 10 mean? Is 10 big or is 10 small? Okay, 10 is a small number if it's the age of somebody, but 10 is a small number if they say someone has 10 years to live and the person is 21 years old. So I think what I'll take away is AI is there to support us, to give us more data. It then gives human beings like the freedom of mind to actually think and create insight from that data. I'll answer the lady online as well. In terms of the incentive for gas. So in the past, in the oil and gas field, what you have is one lump of investment for oil, and then the gas was just the byproducts, which they were flaring at the time. But if you've been following the numbers, the rate of gas flaring has been going down, incentivized by there's a local content rule where maybe 30% of the gas you produce has to be sold in the Nigerian market, etc. So in terms of funding, how people are approaching it now, because that's part of the work I do, is people are attempting to separate the lines of funding from their oil projects and their gas projects. To be honest, gas projects are probably not as lucrative because they still require oil investments to recoup some of their money. So how it works is you have some gas investments that you make, but a lot of it is taken away from your PPT upstream. So what we are doing now is, like somebody mentioned, we are then optimizing for how do we make this gas a standalone investment. Gas was sold before to power plants, So when you produce your gas, I'm sure you're familiar with your CH1, which is methane, ethane, propane, butane, and CMC5+. All of them were sold to the power plants, but the power plants actually needs only methane, which is CH4, which is very cheap. So a lot of technology you are looking at, which is also an opportunity for you guys, is how do we separate these gases very efficiently into CH4, which is methane, I sell to this person, then CH2 and so my ethane, propane, and butane, which is my LPGs, I sell to the LPG plants. Then my C5+, which is condensate, I sell to condensate refineries. So again, it's just for you to look through. There's so much opportunities. The condensate refineries are not very efficient now. They're waiting for you guys to come up with technology. Like the lady mentioned there, the oil and gas industry is not taking any people. Well, I think it's more like the oil and gas industry is looking for skilled people to come in. If you're coming into oil and gas now, what are you really coming to do? They're looking for people to come and add value. So they're looking for someone that has done artificial intelligence for 5 years. The person then comes to reservoir, creates the model in 5 days instead of 1 month, and stuff like that. So there's just so much opportunity for us.
Okay, I'll start with the madam's question. It just looks like there are no opportunities, and I can feel it, right? But the fact is, it's a local problem. When I say local, I mean Nigeria, right? The industry has 3 legs: upstream, midstream, downstream. So the upstream has developed somewhat independently of all these other areas over time. And that's why it looks like the opportunity space shrank. So when the upstream is in trouble, everything is in trouble. That's the way, because we didn't develop our midstream. As a country, we failed to develop a viral midstream industry. And by implication, the downstream was equally not developed. So we have a downstream filled with traders, people who just, they are not different from people inside of the market. So that is the fact. So it now made it look like the opportunity space is just the upstream. And that's why we are here. So when the initial drafts of the PIB, we pushed to place a lot of emphasis on midstream development. That's why the fund was created. When we started discussing the fund, the midstream infrastructure fund was one thing we insisted on. There were a lot of initiatives around developing what can we do to de-risk and develop the midstream, because therein lies our energy journey as a nation. I keep saying this. If we do not develop the midstream, all the gains in the upstream will be frittered away. And I can show you how that happens. When you do all your upstream investment, as a nation, we're not supposed to put it in a boat and ship it to anybody. We're supposed to add value to it here. It is the midstream that adds value to crude. So when we failed to refine and process our crude and we sold it, we were just like that lazy people. So we exported the jobs, those midstream jobs that will crack those molecules, right? We basically put that crude in the boat and shipped it to Europe for them to crack. So the jobs were created in Europe. So now we are coming back. I think with the PIA, there's some focus on getting the midstream and the downstream to work. And for that to happen, again, I'll go back. The private sector needs to drive it. And that's why your company and a few others like that who have some experience in this area needs to come in. If you close your eyes for a second and imagine the number of jobs will be created if we had a petrochemical plant that works. Now think about 10. Can you tell me how many jobs can be created if we can create 10 petrochemical plants in the next 5 years? And that's just petrochemical. How about fertilizers? Do you know how many people the Dangote complex will potentially employ? So I'm just trying to highlight the promise, the opportunities that the midstream and by implication, the downstream will bring. So, and when that happens, you will see that there'll be a spin-off on the upstream as well, because what now happens is that you basically democratize the upstream, because right now it's a closed box. So yes, we missed the road, but I think we'll find we are groping. We might be able to find the way again. And sorry, maybe that's not what you wanted to hear, but that is what I think will happen. And to my friend there that talked about loss of jobs, technology is good because it takes away those mundane jobs, replaces them with better processes. But more than everything else, it's not just that, okay, those people go away. There's an implied expectation that it will produce more profitable businesses that can expand and build more businesses that can employ more people, right? So it doesn't stop there. It is in the efficiencies that you bring to existing businesses by automating their processes that it allows them to grow and grow more jobs. So while you have lost the mundane jobs, you have created opportunity for more useful jobs, in quotes, if I may use that word. I don't know if that makes sense to you. That is the understanding that the draftsman is not, that's not the core of what that paper mill was doing. That paper mill was designed to produce best quality paper at the lowest cost. That draftsman job, right, was given to a machine. But if that machine does that draftsman job, if that draftsman takes 6 months to do a draft and that machine does it in 1 day, it means that that organization will be more efficient. And it means that that organization will not just add more lines, paper lines, will have money to fund R&D to produce better paper, which will employ more people, right? That is the thinking behind automation. If we limit it to that singular draftsman's job, that you could jolly well have that draftsman take 6 months to do that 1 day draft, and that organization will ultimately die anyway. Does that explain what the expectation is? I can't address the specific, but this is generally the notion. And then there was a last question. Was that?
Online, yes.
Okay, yeah, she was talking about gas. I think we've covered it when I talked about the midstream. Okay, so we wrote the national gas policy. I was one of those guys. And one problem we had was people will set target. I still chew on it today, whether it's decision not to set targets. We've made significant progress in the gas space, but not where we should be. We are not there, right? If we had done the right things many years ago, we would have gone very far. We export about 3.64 BCF every day through the LNG. We use about 1.2 to 1.3. That's what is domestically used. That's where the problem is, right? So you produce 8 BCF and you only use 1.3. So what happens to the difference? The difference about 800 million, 850 on the average is fled. That's about 10%. So the remaining of that gas is actually re-injected. So that is the problem. So we produce this gas and we will re-inject it into the ground at a cost. And we're waiting for the market, the future market to monetize, right? So what needs to now happen is that we need to first, and that's why we did the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program. The idea is to say, okay, eliminate the flares first, monetize the flares through giving them out to commercial entities to turn them to from what we call flare to product, whether it's methanol or whatever you can do in situ. The concept is that it has to be in situ processing of that flare gas to a product that can be moved or shipped. Okay, that is stuck somewhere. Then the next focus should be, okay, what do we do with these huge gas banks we've created? We need to find domestic avenues to monetize them, because gas-based industrialization will not happen in a vacuum, right? So we need to get the gas to the local market. How do you do that? We need the infrastructure to move the product. The product has to be at a price that the industries can afford. So you can see the PIA spent a lot of time talking about gas prices, and that is the thinking, because it's been a big issue. Today, there are factory companies that in the commercial space that pay like $7 per 1,000 score. You cannot make money that way. There's no business. You don't have a business if you buy gas at that price. So those are some we hope that the implementation of the PI will address, because gas has to be affordable for the businesses to use it to produce, because the products they will produce, whether it's methanol, whether it's urea, there's a fixed price. They can't fix any price. There's a benchmark price for urea. So if you go and buy gas at anything more than maybe $1.50, you can't produce methanol and sell it at $250 per ton. You can't. So there are questions that the industry has to address around this. I believe we can increase domestic consumption of gas, and it will help, flip the economy around. But that has to be done. There has to be significant investment in infrastructure, and the product has to be properly priced for the market. So my answer is, we just started the journey, and I hope somebody pushes through this agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe. Thank you very much. A round of applause to our panelists, please. A round of applause to our panelists. I think we've had a fire session. That's what I'll call it. A fantastic one, really. And I'll just like to take final thoughts from panelists so that we can wrap up the session. Even though we are all getting value for this, all good things must at one point must wrap up the session. So please, I think I'll start from my just from Jade here, because I started from Chimeri. Okay. Yes. Just
okay, thank you all for a good time. I think we had a very wonderful discussion. But all I want to say is there's a lot of opportunity if you can apply yourself. The only condition I always say is excellence. Let nobody be able to complain about the quality of your work. There's so much opportunity. Like, the way you're applying for jobs is the way companies are struggling to find people as well. People are always looking for talent. Talent never goes out of fashion. Just make sure you're excellent at what you do. You don't know who is watching. It may be your classmates, it may be there's people that is their professors that help them to get jobs. There's people is their friends. I'm sure you've had a case where you could hook your friend up with something, but you didn't do it because you were worried about their performance. I'm sure even if it's in business, like you have a friend that does a business, but you don't patronize them because you don't want to deal with the inefficiency in their business. So just make sure, continue to be excellent. I'm really not worried about the opportunities available for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Kinsley, please, can we hear your thoughts? So Dr. Joe will wrap up the session.
Okay. Like Jari said, right? Don't be scared. Most of you are probably petroleum engineers or engineers. There is a lot of opportunity. The only difference now is people are aligning, in a different way in which they aligned 5 years or 10 years ago. Forums like this will help you align. Petroleum engineering is still going to be used. Drilling will still be used. Nigeria, for example, our midstream sector is almost zero. right? With a country of 200 million people, we need to crack that. We need to crack power, right? We need to crack fertilizer. We need to crack petrochemicals. If you don't develop your midstream is partly petroleum engineering, right? Your pipelines and those big infrastructures, you won't, we will not grow. And we need people like you. We don't even have enough engineers. If you look at the potential of this country, we're not producing enough. So whether you like it or not, there is going to be jobs for engineers and petroleum engineers. And to conclude, by answering his questions, right? Do not fight innovation. You know, things like AI is going to help us, especially in Nigeria, right? Wahala, no dey finish. The reason why you work is to solve wahala, right? And because it will not finish, jobs will never, ever go out of fashion. So don't be in that position where you want to fight AI saying it's going to eat you up, right? It's not going to eat jobs up. It's not going to eat you up. Thanks.
So finally, to round up, Joe mentioned it during his presentation, the energy demand across the world is increasing, right? The middle class across the world in the last decade has been driven mainly by Asia, middle class expansion there. In Africa, I don't think we're even scratching that surface, right? In the next, hopefully in the next 10 years, as our middle class also expands, our demand for energy is also going to increase, right? And who is going to provide that energy that we need? If you look at our power sector, we've been at 3,000 megawatts for, I don't know, since the night, ever since I started hearing that stat, it's always been around that number, right? So our ability to embrace some of these things, because that's kind of like what we are out there to do, right? It's kind of like going to be our road. That baton is going to be passed on us, our generation, to solve that problem. If we don't, we're going to complain and pass it down to the next generation as well. So I would like to encourage all of us. The key word for me is this sort of issues, national issues, provide an avenue for us to do engineering, which is kind of like what we are all called to be. So I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone, and then I'll hand over to Joe.
Thank you very much. I think there are two things I like to leave with as you go today. One is that you're in a unique place, and there's a lot of opportunities, like everyone has highlighted, whether it's in midstream, upstream, downstream, power, gas to power alone, right? I mean, how do you move from 3? I believe Nigeria needs at least 100 gig. Yeah. So how do you move from 3 gig to 100 gig? It takes a lot of sweat and work. So who will do it? All of you. So there's a huge, and do not think because you are a petroleum engineer, you can't do power or you can't do anything. No, I need you to live here thinking, one, that I have a duty to myself and to my country, and thinking too that I'm not just a petroleum, I'm an entrepreneur. We need to wear that entrepreneurial cap. All of us, we tend to discuss our profession and expect that we all go to work in this nice little place, right? And retire and go home. That model too is stale, right? The new one is that you, and I mean you, 2 of you here can get together and come up with a nice little proposal and look for funding and do stuff and own stuff and build stuff. So don't you ever go thinking that if Seplat doesn't hire me, I'm doomed, I'm done. Nope. The guys in IT, fintech, they all started like this now. And their fathers didn't leave them with billions, right? Most of them built from scratch. And now we call them unicorns, and there's no reason why we can't replicate that in the oil and gas space. there are still lots and lots of opportunities to do that. So keep your eyes down, improve yourself, and stay focused. Technology is ever evolving. And for those who are working in that space, keep working. There's a lot of problems here and we need to solve it. And no one else is coming to do it but you.
Thank you very much, sir. Round of applause to our panelists. A round of applause to them. Yes, I think you can. But on behalf, I think before you go, I need her to say thank you to the team. Yes, and she would like us to take pictures before you go back to your seat.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So I really want to say thank you to our panelists. Justice done, justice served. And to everyone who attended, I also thank you for making it out today, leaving every other thing you could have been doing and joining us here in this forum. I have both learned a lot, especially from the keynote presentation. There were perspectives that were expanded from that presentation. Thank you so much, Engineer Joe. So I would add my voice to all that they have said by saying that your job or the skill you need is for the next job opportunity that opens up, so that that job opportunity does not necessarily have a company name tied to it, but it is an experience that will lead you into the next job opportunity and lead you into the next job opportunity. So the next opportunity that comes to you may be in power, it may be in construction, it may be somewhere else, but just know that it is that stepping stone that needs you to get to the next position. Now, I also heard from someone who said, your next job opportunity is your boss's job. Just focus on that next thing beside you, and then it will open you up to many more opportunities. And with that, I would say that we have had a very good time today. I believe that in a few more years, when we'll be meeting at a different capacity, discussing different topics, talking about how far the journey has been. So thank you, and it's been nice having everyone here. We still have a long program ahead of us, right? There's lots packed into the program, so please stay back and let's continue the networking and interactions after the panel session. So
thank you very much, Fayama. So please, our photographer, just quickly want to take a picture with the panelists. Okay. Please, can you take a picture of the panelists first? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. A resounding round of applause to our panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much for a very enlightening session. The discussion doesn't stop here. I believe that our learnings from the conversations and the questions that were answered today, we'll take it back to our schools, our workplace, and share those learnings with our friends and begin to think of how to innovate and change the narrative for ourselves. So very quickly, the next item on our agenda is the announcement by Ms. Tura, supposed to make some announcements on upcoming events. Okay, the section chair will do that. Okay, but before Ms. Tura comes up to do the announcements, we would like to invite Engineer Kofi to give some remarks. I believe we all know him. Please, a round of applause as he comes up. He's a very distinguished veteran. Yes, sir.
Joe, we're in the wrong place, aren't we? Do you understand what I mean? Yeah, I used to work for Mobile Producing Nigeria Unlimited until we became ExxonMobil. And me and Joe, we are back in Seplat. All right, that's transition, isn't it? I was talking to one of the boys who gave you a good question at the back there. And I said, there's nothing that is difficult in getting to the oil industry. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't like the word. Our Nigerian factors created this. And when I say that, I'll tell you that I was employed in England, brought home by Mobile. But what do we have? The government stepped in and started giving reasons why they can't do it. And so as an IOC, they just said, all right, that's what you want, we'll do it. When we went to schools and people went to universities, you know, we all used to do O levels, which is the school start in those days. And then you do HSC, which is the equivalent of A level. A lot of people in the sciences, especially those who do math physics, used to do the exam in the first year of our HSC, because the A levels, the HSC syllabus is more than A levels syllabus. That's part of what what we are now hearing, that we were all forced to be in Nigeria when we shouldn't be Nigeria. Don't let me carry you too much. I went to do A levels in England. And in Igbobi College, I was already in HSC1 before I went. We had a pure mathematical book called Backhouse and Oswald. I don't know whether you people used it. In my Form 5, we used book 1. In HSC, we were using the book 2. And now I've done about 6 months of my HSC, and we have covered about half of the book. So here I am in September of the year. Went into the first year A-level class, and the lecturer came, and I thought maybe he was coming from teaching the O-level class. He brought the 2 books. The next thing he said, these are the 2 books you are going to use. I thought, what? Am I doing revision? No, I'm just trying to tell you how bad the system had been for a long time, and we didn't realize it, and that's what is happening. You see, when we went to schools, people can do anything. You go, if you've done your school start and you have your O levels and you can manage your A levels within 3 months or 6 months doing the syllabus. A lot of my classmates went in that year to the university because they have their A level. But we changed everything. We started, people have been marginalized. I don't even know what to do. We created all this transition. So the problem you have in the oil industry is that the IOC also look at what are they producing. I can tell you that at one time I realized that people who do very well here go to England, do their masters in petroleum engineering or something like that. They are then brought back again. They would rather employ them there because they are quite sure of what the degree demand had, or the human person had, both he or she. And if you look into Laken, you'll see a lot of our people doing very well than what we are having. So this transition of getting into the oil industry is for you people to fight it now. And on what we all talked about, Joe said he came in and he had to book in order to do his modeling. And you know what that meant. If the person didn't go out in time, you too maybe call for something and you have a target to meet. And in the oil industry, I think you are all aware. They give you a target. And if you do it faster than they expected, you're a genius. And it is true. Here in Nigeria, we don't give people credit for being good. You have to be crooked in order to get on. And as such, it affects those who are good. I mean, the lady who was talking who was in the panel, I started saying, yes, you are right. You have to work hard. And you brought in things which, when women say they work hard, people don't think that. And it is in recent time, when you get older, that you find that a lot of people die among the men. And I kept telling people, you know, remember that in a life, the women see the doctor first than we do. So the hard work you are saying is part of it, because you have to take the fact that you have your period, which can be, we can give you 2 or 3 days when you can work with that. So you have to come back and work hard. So that's another transition which people like her has done. So this transition you are talking about, that it can't be oil and gas, it has to change to energy. Please, Joe has said it. Luckily, we are very lucky. I would say we are. Why I said it. He has been in the government. He has been on the other side. So he can tell you. He said he got into the room and there was nobody there. It is true. Because even if you had them, they were not there. He will be saying this and they will be going that way. So it's for us also to find out to get it done. And how do we do it? He also said he sat down next to Jim Ovia. What is he doing here? First of all, the man came also to sell his bank because you know you have the money. Then at the same moment, he starts hearing how you make a lot of money because he sees it in the account. So what does he do? He becomes well, the other guy who is giving money out to African people now. Yes, because they now know that that's where everything is. And that's a transition. We didn't even have it before. And it's now, if you also want, you know how to get everybody to do it. And in the SPE, don't let me say, how do we start it? We started it in 1973. SPE had been in existence, people have come. So we all joined with some people that you must have heard, Aret Adams, Dr. Phillips, Jim Orife, all the older people. And we transited. It is even SPE who woke up federal government very well that, we have to do something. Because this SPE, at the SPE meeting, because we brought government officials to the conference then, that they came that the government is now, we were 55-45. And they just came and at that meeting, at the opening ceremony, to say government is acquiring that 5. So government is now 60-40. Before they finished, you can see all the MDs went out of the room because it took them, it's a transition. So they have to rejig again and say, what are we going to do? We are getting 5% of that money. It's not easy, but it stopped them from doing what I would call look at the risk. and said, well, because in recent time, you can see the transition. And that's why mobile producing is now going to be surplus. The only thing I didn't like is the problem you had in surplus. I'm not very happy. They did a good job. Fantastic. That's why they're able to win. I will tell you that myself and some groups, he does not know here, all of us who had left a long time were trying to get some fields out of ExxonMobil until somebody quietly told us that that one you are looking for belongs to Elumelu. I think, how can they do this? Let us be inside now so that since we know what it is offshore. But the next thing we had after some time is that ExxonMobil is about to go out and it's not ready to do anything. So we are happy. So thank you, all of you, for being here. I've tried to tell you what is transition in different versions. And it's now left for you. You take it yourself. You have people, do your networking. And what is networking? It's not even to them alone. When you talk to them, it's talked about attending other meetings that you have your friends who are computer scientists, bankers, be able to talk and see where they can help you. Thank you, gentlemen. I think I'll leave that out.
Thank you, Engineer. We truly appreciate you being here and your wise words to us. Thank you so much. We are wrapping up now, and I would like Tosin to please come up and give us the announcement.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just supposed to talk to us about the upcoming events organized by SPE Lagos. So the first one I've seen on the screen is the Field Performance Prediction Under Uncertainty, Striving on Automation. So we have a distinguished lecturer of SPE, and it's happening on 18th of May, 2022. I would love us to just 16th of May, 2022. So we can check our social media pages to find the appropriate links to just register for the event. And for our big event, SPE Lagos Technical Symposium and Exhibition is a 2-day event. Day one talks about energy transition in Africa. Day two is about the pathway to net zero, carbon net zero. Today, May 17th to 18th. You can also check our social media pages on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and all that to just get all the appropriate details about the events. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we still have more because, yeah.
So sorry. So we have another event. Okay. So own a scholarship with Mervyn Azeta. Some of us are very popular, are very conversant with LinkedIn. You know, she works with so look at that. And then the future of LNG, past, present, and future. As we have heard today, gas is going to be very important in the coming years as that energy mix. So we'll be discussing the future of LNG and all of that from past to future. We have 2 speakers from different companies, and that's happening June 1st. So we should look out for that and just use our social media pages to follow them. And like I've been saying, to connect with SPE Lagos section, to be abreast of all the information of the upcoming events and everything. You can connect with us or follow us on LinkedIn, SPE Lagos section 61. We are also very active on Twitter, SP_Lagos. You can connect with us on Instagram, SP_Lagos. And we're also on Facebook. I don't know if a lot of us are on Facebook. Those of us that use Facebook very well, you can also follow us, SP.Lagos. And yeah, we have a YouTube page, to catch up on some of our past events. If you want to watch a replay of some of the events, you can check or subscribe to our YouTube channel, SPE Lagos. Connect, follow, and share to stay informed. We are SPE. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tosin, for outlining the upcoming events. And just like Fayama just pointed out, the very first lecture he spoke about is a physical event. I think Chinere dropped a link right now. So if you want to participate, you can actually register using that link. Ah, what a wonderful session. I believe we all feel energized, enthusiastic about everything we've heard today. And I do hope we are going to implement our learnings from today. But before I hand over to who's going to give the vote of thanks, I want to just take some online comments because I know a lot of people have been dropping comments. So they know that we are looking at those comments and we are listening. Please, technically, let's just have one or two comments showing, because I saw someone saying, thank you, SPE Lagos. So let's have such comments come up. Yeah. Okay, so Rakib Akombi is saying, thanks to SPE Lagos and Sepla Energy for hosting this awesome event. Oh my. Okay, it's an eye-opener and a guide for the young professionals, especially students with an ambition of transitioning into the energy industry. We have a couple of comments saying amazing session, thanks to SPE Lagos, insightful session, thanks to SPE Lagos, thanks to SPE and the panelists, big thanks to the panelists and our able moderator, awesome session. So a lot of thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you everyone, really. Thank you so much for the time spent here. Thank you to our panelists, they've done a fantastic job. And to crown up all or wrap up all the thank yous, I would like to invite the, okay, so that we don't take so much time anymore. I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating, sticking with us from the beginning to the very end. And you all asked questions, you were fully engaged. So we truly appreciate you. SPE Lagos truly appreciates you. And we hope that you'll be a part of this next year. But the discussion doesn't end here. We still have a networking session where we have games here. We have Tana Ofik in the house. He's the one coordinating the game section. So he has things planned out for you. Please do not go immediately. Just stay back and participate. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. God bless. Thank you. Tana, yes, please, let's have a breakdown of what you have planned for us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Tana. I'm part of the team organizing the games at the back. Part of the day's event is networking, yeah? So we want to get to know each other in a more relaxed environment, more informal. So we have chess boards at the back. We have Scrabble. For those of us who are FIFA champions, there is a FIFA 22 at the back. We could have a tournament and someone can win a very great prize. I'm sure Chamaka is going to sponsor a very serious award if you win the tournament. So let's all get to the back. There's food, chill, and relax. Have fun, please. Thank you.
All right. Pictures, pictures, pictures. The board members, pictures in the front. Board members and committee members, pictures in the front.
Okay, no,
he's doing well. The only I said something on him.